Vancouver Island and from Vancouver and from Alberta. And I'd also like to welcome our many guests tonight. We have a pretty wonderful talk, as you're all aware and waiting for an anticipation. There will be a brief break halfway through, and then we have a few announcements just before we let Bill start speaking again in the second half. So with no further ado, I'll turn it over to our speaker watchkeepers, Pam and Ted. Take it away.
Okay, so many of you have been watching the Vendée Globe and these incredible rock star racers going around the globe in 80 days and their multi-million-dollar 60-foot boats with their multi-million-dollar syndicates and a huge crew of backup and everything else. And that's very impressive. But you know, Bill went around the world. He took a lot longer. He spent a year out there. He didn't do it in a 60-footer that cost several $million. He did it in a little Bristol Channel Cutter that's all of 28 feet long, plus a few bowsprit and boomkin. His support crew was his wife, Kathy, who basically looked after making sure he had his weather organized. Occasionally, he wasn't able to talk to anybody because the limited electronics he had on board got drowned by the seawater. And of course, seawater and electronics don't go well together. So as far as I'm concerned, what Bill did is every bit as impressive and frankly, to me, a lot more impressive than racing around the world in a multi-million-dollar yacht with a huge crew of people behind you to keep you going. So this is Bill Norrie and Kathy Norrie. Bill is a friend of ours from Calgary. We spent a lot of time sparring at various fleet meetings because we come at things from a little bit different directions, but we're all old mountaineers and sailors and offshore sailors. And I think Bill tonight is going to be very, very interesting to listen to. And Bill, you need to unmute yourself.
Dang it. There we go. There we go. I just did it.
So we're unmuted now?
Yes.
You're unmuted now. You're on the way.
Oh, great. Great. Thank you, John. Thank you, Pam and Ted. Thank you, BCA.
Now, don't you start crying.
No, I'll cry later. And thank you all our friends who for popping in and to hear my story. Thank you very much. The day after PIXIE got tucked into her little berth in the Royal Vic Yacht Club, a few of us were in the cockpit yucking it up, and it came up that I was invited to share this story, and I just about felt, I thank you very much for this opportunity. It is my supreme pleasure and privilege to be here tonight. So when that became evident that was happening, I wanted to yell out as the Pope Catholic, but of course I want to talk. I can't wait to talk. But you know what? The voyage is part A and the storytelling is part B. And PIXIE was at that day on September the 3rd, she was the last boat in the history of the world that ever circumnavigated all by herself. There's been a few hundred ahead of us and power to them, but I never saw any trace of them, not a single trace. It looked to me like we were the first ones and only ones out there. And that's how we wanted it. We wanted to go out there and see the world's last wild, big place, the Southern Ocean. And so I'm privileged to have been down there. Anyway, I may have sailed solo. I may have sailed solo, but I was never alone. Yeah. So thank you. We're at this early hour because is in tipping our hat to the Calgary group. There's our own little bosom buddies down there. As Ted said, Ted and I, we had the greatest little spars. We were going at it tooth and nail. We were entertainment for everybody, and I loved it. It was the best counsel of perfection I've ever had with one person. We had a lot of fun. Rarely do we ever break out in tears, and we never threw any fists, and we never broke into 4-letter words because we really are gentlemen. Really, we are really gentlemen, and it's been a really great ride. You gotta love sailing. I just love it, and so here we are. So the very first guy that did this, the part B, that went off sailing and then came home to tell the story was coming up. Here comes. Here it comes. Oh, we were going to have some music and we skipped that. No, we didn't. I'll talk for a bit more before this then.
Just a minute.
We just technical.
And Bill, I'm going to interject for 1 minute. For people that have questions, please send them to Pam and I via chat, and we'll deal with them all either after the break or at the end of the production.
Okay.
Just a minute.
Bill, you're on.
Okay, okay. Now, where were we? Well, you see. Oh, yeah. So the first guy was not this David Coffin with this beautiful little shanty. The first guy that did this stuff was Homer. Homer wrote the story of the Odyssey, and that was the first time in the West. It's the center, the beginning of the Western canon, where we go offshore. We get into all kinds of wiggly wiggles. We run into dragons and storms and rocks and beautiful sirens, but we managed to pry free and come home, and that's just exactly what PIXIE was all about. And so, and I see. Yeah, can you believe it? That little boat went around the horn. Can you believe that? That's coming later, but it was a really great moment that we went around the horn, PIXIE and I. So, but so the first guy to do this sort of deal went off sailing and then come home to tell his buddies was no less than, here we go. We're just gonna find this weird technique. There it is. There's Odysseus himself, and he's fighting off dragons and stuff and trying to get around the story. He came home. He was the very first of this genre. PIXIE is just the very last of this genre of what Joseph Campbell would call the hero's quest. But the story I love the most, as you kind of got a hint of it last month, was Samuel Taylor Coleridge's story, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Now, that looks like me. I left my pole outside. I took my bathrobe off just now. But does that not, old boy, just look like me? He'd been on a big tough time voyage, and he stoppeth one of three wedding guests. Poor guy. This mariner was cursed to tell his story forever after he was spared and came home. I am blessed to tell my story once I got home to tell my story. But he sat that wedding guest down. It's kind of like sitting a millennial down. You know, they're young and they're frisky and they're a little frivolous, and they don't get the seriousness of life. But the mariner, he stopped at that one of three, that wedding guest, and he told him the story, and he was wiser and sadder for the end of it. And so tonight is my chance to tell my story, or PIXIE's story. Now, I'm just having a little issue here. Yeah, okay, good. So the topic is called Once More Around the Pale Blue Dot. Pale Blue Dot is thanks to the man who wrote Cosmos. Anyway, yeah, I'll get that in a minute. Once more, so PIXIE had a prequel. There was a prequel voyage to PIXIE's turnaround, and Kath and I went around the world west about in the southern, in the trade winds, the so-called coconut milk route run, and very much that. And you look here, this is a bit of a busy slide, but there's a few things going on here. Number one is there's 5 white circles, 2 in the northern hemisphere going clockwise, and 3 in the southern hemisphere going anti-clockwise. And the black line running through the whole thing is Terwin's route. As you can see it, the vertical line from Victoria straight down, and then into the South Pacific is Terwin's route heading in a westerly direction. And that little trip around, Poppy and I did it over 5 years. It was really just 3 years because we kept coming home to Calgary to work. But we really rode downwind the whole way. And of that 3 years at sea, only 1 year was spent going 24/7 at sea. And if somebody ever asked what was the best day, well, out of those 350 odd days at sea, at least 250 were the absolute dream. You know, it was 78 degrees, 15 knots of breeze, you know, on the port quarter or starboard quarter, and seas less than 2 meters. We never ate a single supper down below. We had every single supper in the cockpit. And generally there'd be a bottle of wine. My job was to hold it, not spill anything. Kathy down below cooking up a storm. We'd serve it up in the cockpit and we watched the sunset. El Divo would be playing, and it was absolutely the best year of my life, hands down. If those of us who have the opportunity, I go on and on and on. I bored Calgary to death about trade wind sailing. I'm going to give a little spat at it again here this evening, but it is so very great. But there's a sixth gyre that's not shown on this chart, and that's in the Southern Ocean, where they go straight from west to east, and it circles the entire globe, and that's where we went today. But I have I have how would I say? I have a confession. It turns into an explanation. My confession is that quite frankly, I feel like a square peg in the round hole, trying to drive into a round hole, that hole being the zeitgeist of today's cruising world, where it's bantered about regularly that one should spend 90% one would expect to spend 90% of your time cruising on anchor and 10% at sea. Bollocks, Billy says, bollocks, bollocks. I can't say that loud enough or more enough. That should be reversed. Those of us who get into sailing at a ripe old age over 40 odd, there's not enough time if you're going to spend 90% of it at anchor. I totally don't get that. I just don't get it. And I've been teased. Ted, bless his little heart, he teased me mercilessly about always moving forward, right? So on Terwin's voyage, 3 years it's going, we spent like 30% at sea, but that wasn't quite enough. I kind of like, it's okay to go. And in the cruising zeitgeist, it keeps coming up that it's all about the destinations, and the ocean is something to get across, get through so you can get to the next party or the next sandy beach. And it's not it at all. That's not at all. The ocean is the destination. The ocean is the target. And so I was just thrilled to bits to have this possibility to sail the Southern Ocean in PIXIE in our second vessel. And it's been really great. So here she comes. This is Enter PIXIE. You had a picture of Terwin earlier, but this is PIXIE as she's leaving Cadborough Bay on August 31st. And hang on here. I'm just gonna, yeah. Okay, so we're gonna talk about PIXIE's voyage now. I missed a little section I wanted to say. So about the 90%, 10% thing, like we got into sailing when I was only till I was 35. So I spent the first 35, 40 years of my life in the mountains and studying medicine. And one learns climbing mountains that you got to climb one mountain, then you see another one next door, then you set your sights on that and you go after that mountain, you get that mountain, you get another mountain, and next thing you get a whole bunch of mountains in that one range of mountains, and you get a sense for that kind of mountain and that range. But you need to visit other mountain ranges to get a ballpark feeling. So to understand the Rockies, I had to go to the Southern Alps. So I went to the Southern Alps, and Mount Cook is absolutely fantastic. And from the Southern Alps, I had to go to the Himalayas and spend a year in the Himalayas working, and the Himalayas are wonderful. Came home, had to go to the St. Elias Range in Mount Logan because it's another mountain range, a whole nother culture. Then you got to go to the the Tetons and Grand Tetons, and then the Selkirks, the Purcells, and the Scottish Highlands, the Snowdonia, and then finally the Andes. You got to see all these mountain ranges to understand mountains. And so it is with Terwin went across in the trade wind. She visited 5 of the major big oceans: North Pacific, South Pacific, Indian Ocean, South Atlantic, North Atlantic, Caribbean, back to the North Pacific. But she never saw the Southern Ocean. And to really understand oceans, I truly believe it's good to see as many as you can so you can ballpark how great and how your own ocean fits in the bigger picture of ocean. Carl Sagan was the name I was trying to remember. Carl Sagan's pale blue dot. It's blue because of the atmosphere, but that's directed by the ocean. And so what little time we have left on this planet, the whole idea is to try to understand it and experience it. And hence, I had to go to the Southern Ocean. And there's no question, I would not have been true unto myself if I gave it up. And I'm just so glad I did. And when we toured in the Terwin in the trade winds, it's very evident that 80% of circumnavigators these days are ma and pa, and they're often geriatric like us, or plus or minus with children. But 80% are married couples. So if you want to sail around the world, you fall in love with a sailor or a sailor wannabe, you get married, sign on the dotted line, commit yourself to yourselves, right? And then buy a boat together and combine forces and head off. Otherwise, You're kidding yourself if you think you're going to sail around the world. You got to pretty well got to be married 80%. Hello. And then this is totally a retrospective analysis of by one. So it's pretty scientific. You understand that in medicine, you understand it. Pretty accurate. And the next biggest group are solo guys. Gene Socrates is the exception that makes Billy's rule. You've got to go by yourself. And after our beautiful trip around the world, which could never got any better, we were blessed with a grandson. And it was kind of cold, and my Kathy / Poppy at sea is not keen on cold, so I'm on my own. There's no problem. I'm good with that. I'm totally good with that. And how does one prepare to be? I was going to be home alone on that water, on the water in our boat by myself for months on end. I'm good with that. I'm totally good with that. And the whole time I was going to the mountains, I could never have enough partners. And when I was a teenager, I'd hitchhike to the Rocky Mountains and spend a night or two out there on my own and come back, and parents would never know where the heck I was, nor would they care. And I'm good. I don't need, as I said to CBC, I spent 60 years with people. 6 months on my own is just fine. Thank you very much. It was just fine, So we had to go to the Horn. Full stop. There's nowhere else. Oh, and in the process of studying mountaineering, came across the Smeatons and Bill Tillman, and they planted the seed inside my brain when I was still a teenager that old mountaineers go to sea. So I knew I was going to cross an ocean before I ever saw the ocean, and like absolutely no question. If Bill Tillman's doing it, I'm doing it, and if the Smeatons did it, I'm doing it. And hence I'm so happy I did it, right? And so whatever. But so it's nothing we did fresh. We just following in the wake of all these great sailors ahead of us. So that was something I forgot to mention. I'm glad I got to mention that now. So now we're going to talk about PIXIE's voyage. Finally, I find it hard to get rolling, you can tell. Okay, PIXIE's voyage, 3 sections: south to the Horn, east around the Southern Ocean, and north to Victoria. Perfect, simple. I like to keep it simple because, I'm not the smartest tack in the box. Certainly never was the most valuable player, but put one foot in front of the other. That's my game, man. One foot in the other. I'm good with that. And okay, so now we're going to see that again in another way. There's PIXIE's voyage as it was planned. So the first leg south to the Horn is really a reproduction of Terwin's course in the coconut milk run all the way around the world. So she followed the northeast trade south to the ITCZ, and then she followed the southeast trades down to the Horn. And I didn't know how fast PIXIE would go. I knew how fast great Tony Gooch, twice as fast as PIXIE, and how fast he went. And I know how fast Gene Socrates, the world's oldest female circumnavigator, superstar, lovely lady. I knew how. I have their numbers on my little piece of paper, my little black book. I just happened to find a few minutes in the operating room to type those down a year ahead. And so that was the only guidelines I had for how PIXIE was going to do. And she's a lot smaller than all these other boats, so I couldn't hold myself back. I had to leave. I had to quit work first. Old people retire. I quit. I quit work. I love work, but I didn't see any Nobel Peace Prize for medicine coming my way after 42 years. So too bad, so sad. I got to get going because all the action happens at night, as we know. In the operating room, real action happens at night when there's lots of blood on the floor. And in the real action happens on the sailboat in the middle of the night when there's water everywhere and no light, right? All my best days are with a headlamp. And so I had to leave. I quit work in the middle of July in 19, give myself 6 weeks to get PIXIE ready down in the Royal Vic Yacht Club after 5 years of pouring units into her and practicing with Poppy best we could, and left on August 31st. The whole idea is to get to the Horn in the ideal time because it's 56 south. And with Drake Passage, you can see Antarctica stretches up and meets it. The current is at least a knot plus heading in an easterly direction. And the graveyard of the seas, it's a fantastically wild, dangerous, and therefore gotta go sort of place. But PIXIE went faster than I figured she would go. She went just pretty close as fast as Terwin went, at averaging 110, 120 miles a day maybe. And so I was going to get there in the early November. So I bailed and went to French Polynesia, phoned home, and Kathy came down to hold my hand and stuff. And we had 3 weeks of paradise in the French Polynesia. Guy's got to do what a guy's got to do what he wants to do, right? So we had a little bit of cruising action in French Polynesia. It's totally wonderful. Yeah, totally wonderful. And hang on, here we go. So there you can see. That's why there's that big zig towards New Zealand. I wasn't giving up and going to New Zealand. That was a calculated change of trajectory. And so it's only 7,900 nautical miles from Victoria to the Horn via the Great Circle route. But I wiggled down my way and went off to French Polynesia to hang out with Poppy for 3 weeks. And then once again, it was the best 3 weeks of my life again. You know, like, it's pretty good. If you had all those cruisers, go. As parties say, go simple, go now as soon as COVID's over, because we don't know what's coming, right? So cruise selection, PIXIE Sail South, cruise selection. We already talked about that. If it's not a married couple, forget it. Go by yourself, and did that. Ocean gyres, check. We did that. We talked about the Northeast trades and the Southeast trades and the coconut milk run. And so the first trip down was downwind all the way virtually until it was into the roaring 40s and the furious 50s and heading for the Horn. But, like 4/5 or more of this first leg section was all downwind trade wind sailing. And which brings up my very favorite conversation topic that bores everybody else but sailors to sleep, is trade wind sailing sail plan. I love this topic. We're going to have a couple of videos here because it's all about that. If you look in a marina in anywhere in the world, all the boats now, all the pleasure craft, virtually all are fore and aft rigged, some version of sloop, cutter, ketch, yawl, schooner, right? Fore and aft rig was basically a to windward sail plan. But the trouble is when you get off, or the good news is when you get offshore, as the trade winds imply, square rig ships, it's all downwind sailing. So we need to convert our fore and aft windward coastal boats to a downwind offshore sailing craft. So we're going to look at a couple of videos. I'll be yakking about that. And because that's all about the first leg, piece of cake. Like PIXIE was not tested really at all. We had a cakewalk all the way to the Horn. Actually, it was really good. And how Billy had the presence of mind to snap this picture of PIXIE's chart plotter in the cockpit blows my mind. You'll recognize Cape Flattery, dead center, low center, and you can see the boat. That's PIXIE heading off on a southeast course, having left Port Renfrew. And with AIS running, the chart plotters running, it's all game over. The boat is finally, this is the beginning of the voyage, but it's the end of the preparation. Like, there's so much preparation. I won't bore you to death with the little, some 1,000 details that we kept us busy and excited about life, getting PIXIE ready to go, and why we chose PIXIE and not Terwin. A little bit of that comes later. But this little picture of PIXIE leaving Port Renfrew was taken at 8:45 on September the 2nd, and at 8:45 to 9:30 on September the 2nd, the next year, she crossed that path. So within the hour, we tied the knot. We crossed our outward bound path with our inward bound path. Totally fluky accident, but within the hour. And I find that kind of cool. But anyhow, so we're within a half an hour leaving Canadian waters in this little pick. And first mission on this downward leg section to the Horn is the Oregon-Washington coast. And so I left the 1st of September because I'm a coward. I didn't want to leave the end of October in case I hadn't have time to get there, nor did I want to face increased probability of storms and gales off the Washington-Oregon coast. So I left in our Pacific Northwest summer and put me down there too soon, but we dealt with that already. That's the first problem. So we got through that one issue, no problem. The next problem is I'm not too proud of this, and none of us really, we don't advertise this section, but reality is the world's got several hurricane belts when they have their seasons. And to get from Vancouver Island to the Horn, you've got to go right through section number 2. the Northeast Pacific hurricane zone. Not good, not good. And so they follow in the latter half of that hemisphere's summer. And this zone, zone 2, is actually a bigger area than zone 1, the Caribbean. We hear all about the Caribbean because you know who's living off the windward end of that one. And but number 2 spins out into the North Pacific, and we don't hear much about it. But actually, those storms, there's way more of them, and they're in a wider span of time. So it's from June right through to the end of October. So you've got to cut your way right through the middle of that hurricane zone. And first role of seamanship is vigilance and a lookout. And as a solo guy, you're down below a fair bit of time, and you're not really, so we're not proud of that, but we do that. And we're not proud of having to cut through a hurricane area either, but we did that because I wasn't going to leave there in the first of spring and then spend 6 months in Polynesia. That would be too much like paradise, right? So we went when I went, like Tony and Jean did, and Peter Freeman also. So the only 3 other Southern Ocean east about circumnavigators that I'm aware of and read what they had. So we took that risk and ran with it. So hurricane zone, we got to run through the bowling alley of the hurricanes area. And this, we used predict wind, and predict wind worked really well. I have no reason to look for any other. It's more information than you ever needed to know, and it's all available. And dummies like me with a satellite and a superstar wife at home can manage it, no problem, absolutely no problem. So this is a picture coming down. I don't know if you can see it. There's the Baja, California. The Baja is on the sort of central right, and those 2 big red dots are not hurricanes; they're tropical storms. So they're a couple of grades below hurricane, but there's such a tight little circle. The waves would be ferociously wild in all directions. So we picked our course and we just ran through, like in the mountains through a rockfall area or underneath an ice fall. Speed is safety. So we went lickety split right down through the middle of these 2 tropical storms and had got through it obviously. Hello, yeah. And we came home also in the same season, back up through the same area, but further west. That teardrop of the Northeast hurricane zone is like a big raindrop, but the bulb is off the Mexican coast in Central America, and it spins out towards Hawaii. It's quite skinny. The path, the trajectory of these hurricanes is quite gets compressed in a little zone, so you don't have as far to drive through to get through the further west you are. So we try to stay off the coast as far as we can. So you don't want to be close to this Mexican coast in the summertime because of those storms. So we got lucky there a little bit. Always better to be lucky. Anyhow, let's make through. The movie Adrift was all about getting caught in such a hurricane at such a zone at such a time. It happens, yeah. So got off the Oregon coast, check. Got through the hurricane zone, check. Got to the doldrums, check. And we just had a wonderful time. It was going too good, so bore off and went to French Polynesia, and it was all good. There's 2 videos coming here which could represent any day out of 280 out of the 360 that Poppy and I had in Terwind going down the trade winds. And it was just a regular day here for PIXIE. I think we're in the South Pacific. You'll see we're about level with Tahiti, but a fair bit east of Tahiti, heading for Gambier Archipelago, which is the second further southest of the 5 French Polynesian archipelagos that make up French Polynesia. But you'll see on this video, the seas are so friendly. There's less than 2 meters, like 1.5 meters. It's sunny, and it's warmer than it looks. This is the dream, boys and girls. This is the way it goes on day after day after day. It is totally, totally wonderful. And this first shot is we're just after the beam, and it's just captures the joy therein, and it features Hassie's brand new suit of sails. These sails are all like brand new, and not one stitch went out on the whole way. 2 times round the world with brand new Hassie sails in 2 old boats, and not one single sail malfunction. Nada. There was ultraviolet covering on the main jibs near the foot needed reinforcing, and 2 sail lugs chafed through, and I did a bad thing with that. But really, the sails were bomb proof. I never had an issue. So here's a few minutes. I'll catch my breath, and but catch the joy. And oh yeah, and they'll both have servo pendulum wind vanes. When you'll see them both working. The first video here, I think, has the monitor, and the second one's even better because it's got Frida, our freehand steering, going the shot. I steered these boats, Pappy and I, both trips all the way around in like less than 1% of the time. We're big believers in wind vane steering. Okay, run. And now again, here we go. A moment later in the cockpit. Woo! Let's see, what a beautiful day. Okay, so I'm gonna go look up the sails. The sun, can't see much. See, we got a single reef in the main. And there's blue sky all the way around. Turn all the way around here. Maybe it looks like nothing. Maybe they're a meter and a half. I don't know. Anyway, that's me hanging on to the back stay. Okay. That's my view. Oh my God, it's fantastic. Fantastic. Oh yeah. Whee! What a day, huh? Close to 2 o'clock. It's been doing this since like 10. It seems we're finally going right down the pipeline. Maybe we'll get it's already going to be our personal best anyway. 6'8", 6'9", 7'5" through the water. Wow. Water. Pretty much on her feet. Doesn't really bury that rail very much. Yeah. Beautiful. Wow. Okay, I'm gonna turn it off, go up and settle myself at the mast and start it again. Okay, I forgot to mention one other little thing. Besides being a history of mountaineering, I'm also was an anesthesiologist, and we are what we do to a certain degree, and I love my numbers. The parallel between anesthesia and sailing is very, very strong, and I wanted to mention this too because it put me a leg up on this whole endeavor. Because in anesthesia, just like sailing, it helps if you know a little bit of science, basic science behind you, and someone teaches you a little bit how to get started, and then you got to stay in there and watch the numbers go by, and the patient sleeping or the boat moving through the water, and you spend a long time looking at these numbers and a happy, comfortable, safe, stable patient or ocean boat on ocean, right? And then every now and then you get some action, you get some real action, like bronchospasm or a squall or unexpected bleeding, or a rock showing up at the wrong time, or a major equipment failure break, and you got to sort it all out. And that's the really fun stuff. It's that 10%, 90% boredom and 10% chaos is not accurate at all. It's 90% joy watching all the numbers go by and just tuning these little waves. I've tried many times to sit on my hands in PIXIE's cockpit or Terwin's cockpit for on the clock 10 minutes. Don't touch a thing. Almost impossible. You're sitting there watching it all go by, and think, you know what? We should fall off 5 degrees. It really should fall off 5 degrees. And you know what? That preventer should have been a little bit tighter, maybe, right? Possibly a little vang, a little more vang, or maybe a little more oxygen, or we should decrease the pulmonary pressure a little bit. And let's just add the drip a little bit more relaxant or opioid, or maybe a little more sail. We should come up a little bit, go down a little bit, and let me just adjust my seat a little bit. And the numbers. Carl Sagan again said there's a lot of joy in quantification. And as a lover of classic stuff, I really wanted us to make PIXIE a very classic sailboat with none of this stuff. But I succumbed to my own heritage and history. Quite frankly, I love Poppy, but I really, really, really like these numbers. And unfortunately for you, I get sort of mesmerized by the numbers. So you're going to spend a lot of time staring at these numbers, thinking, when are we going to see some ocean or some, some wildlife or something? No, it's mainly numbers because the numbers are so good. Look at here, we're staring at 27.4 degrees Celsius. That's ocean temperature. My God, so the wind is never going to be colder than 27.4. So it's probably closer to 30 in due sun. It's just totally wonderful. You could, it's so anyhow, that's the explanation for all these numbers going on. And they're also set up in all modesty aside, the perfect place. So you're looking ahead to see what's coming, but you're also looking at your numbers at from any point in the cockpit. Just love this stuff. It's just so much fun. This sailing and anesthesia, you got to love them both, right? It's a privilege and a blessing. And anesthesia taught me how to read, which was also good. And the other thing about medicine, it taught us how to teach ourselves. We know when we know, and we know when we don't know, and we know where to go get the help. And therefore the patient does well, and the boat gets to the end of the destination. It's a thing of beauty. It's a joy to behold. Okay, so now this next video is within the same week, if not the same day. And that last one was about 120 degrees, 120 degrees off the wind. Now we're going to go dead downwind. And I see our rigger, Brent Jacoby, built both boats, and he's in there. He's in the bottom. This is our boat, but it's his boat. I got to admit it. Okay, we won't go there, but yeah, here we go. This is dead downwind with Hassy Twigs.
Here we are. You can see we're running dead downwind now. 5.7, and we're going 242. I really would obviously like to go 214, but we'll get there eventually. All right, and now I'm going to stand up, and we'll have a look at the sail set. First off, there's Freedom managing it. Okay.
Beautiful.
Really long. Got falling down a bit. Falling down. Train to bed, try so frail, stay so furled, roll the furling jib out on the pole here to windward, and hold it up between the angles. I just can't reach the upper pole higher to get the proximal end of that one, but it's okay, not too much pressure. Anyhow, here we go. Good sun exposure for this picture. Here we are, running twins, 580 miles to go to Poppy. Whew. It's now almost 1 o'clock. I've been doing stuff since 7. Yeah, okay. Thanks for watching. There we are. There's the picture with 2 poles of always going on and on. So we're actually doing it. See how long this lasts. Okay, jump. Woo!
Okay, a little bit of a technical chit chat about downwind sailing. This is my very favorite topic. So sailors, you know what's coming. There's so much misinformation out there, and those 50 sailors I talked to, and 80% married. Well, 100%, maybe 98% never fly a spinnaker in the open ocean if they're a geriatric ma and pa team, plus or minus children, as circumnavigating. Like who needs that? The window is so small for a spinnaker out in the open ocean. I think you'd be, to go to sleep, to go to bed with that flying out there, you're asking for trouble. So an alternative to that, which is the solution for normal racing yachts, is downwind, a thwart ship plan with a spinnaker and a pulled out and a held out main, not offshore. The mainsail, as I said so 300 times in the trade winds, is not your mainsail. You can see it here. This is a shot from Terwin where the mainsail is put to bed and it stays to bed in an effort to keep the center of effort far forward so the boat tracks on its own. Frida was managing it there, but really she was sailing on her own. She almost don't need any self-steering. The boat will equalize itself, and it just, provided you're going 180 degrees, it absolutely tracks downwind. But the part that you can't see here is that both jibs are on roller furlings. The The roller furling jib, obviously, like everybody has, a good idea. And the drifter is on a Spectra luff with a continuous line furler run back to the cockpit. So both head sails can be titrated and diminished and stowed from the cockpit by myself in the middle of the night by hand. No issue, no issue. It never failed me once. So you can put those puppies to bed from the safety of the cockpit in the pitch black when the squall hits you and put it back out again. No big deal, right? And as the wind pipes up and you're too lazy like me to put the whole thing down, you can just titrate it down to about 50% each of them, or a little hanky on both sides, and then put them to bed the next day. It's not an all or none function. The spinnaker is an all or none function. And if the sail, if the wind is really low, like under 6 knots, and you're just ghosting along at 1.5, 2 knots and 2 knots of apparent wind with a true wind of 4 to 6 knots, the spinnaker poles hold the clews stable, and the sails stay there, and they're ready for the next puff. With the spinnaker, the doggone thing would collapse and flutter around and screw around, and when it's really low wind, the spinnaker is not supported. This is vastly superior, and I think they've gone from spinnakers to gennikers, and now the sexy code zeros, but they're all afraid to use something like unsexy, like a drifter. This drifter is really 110% nylon, 2.2 ounce Genoa. It's a full sail, but does not have that high shoulder, but it's mated in size relative to the jib. And the jib is only 100 and PIXIE's was 100 and Terwin's was 105. There's no point in having a bigger Genoa, because any bigger than that, the thing would collapse in that light of wind. And any bigger than that, you can't pull it out aft athwartship, because the spinnaker pole is limited by how far back it can go by the forward shroud. So you can't unfurl the whole sail anyway. So like, hello. And then Jimmy Cornell, bless his heart, he's peddling that stupid, winged spinnaker as if the thing to have. And it's not true, boys and girls. It's just plain not true. Tut, tut, tut. Broke my heart that he would let the money talk. So anyhow, on with the show. Here's Terwin. One last little picture with both poles. If there's any little lesson here for offshore sailors, become friends with your spinnaker pole. Both our boats have 2 spinnaker poles. One lives on the mast. And I finally listened to Jacoby and got a carbon fiber spinnaker pole. It's the best extra money we ever spent on Terwin, like on PIXIE. It's a really good way to go. It's a quantum leap better than a heavier aluminum pole on the mast. And the other one is a telescopic free spinnaker pole that lives on the deck on its own chocks. And God forbid if we ever got rolled and lose the whole rig, we got a chance of setting up a jury rig. We got a mast partners at the bottom. We could theoretically rig up a jury rigged sail with that extra spinnaker pole if the whole other shooting match goes over the board. So 2 spinnaker poles, anything more than 150 degrees aft, and wear them both all the time. Both poles are independently suspended with 4 guy after guy in their topping lift. And go out there and anchor in the bay and put up and put down your spinnaker pole for 4 or 5 times for a day when there's not a lot of wind. And then have some champagne. It's really good. Love our spinnaker poles. Love our downhill rig. So that's what we did all the way down, was downwill sailing. Pretty easy, but you know what? For 250 to 300 days of my life, that's all I did, and it was as good as 200 days in any day of my life. It's totally wonderful. Now, this is not PIXIE nor Terwin, but it shows you another solution to this downwind sail plan. It's all about square surface area. Other thing about spinnakers is they're trying to get nobody's playing the luff, nobody's steering to the luff or playing the sheet to get a little bit of suck on that downwind spinnaker. It's square surface area. Don't kid yourself. That never happens on the open ocean with a small-handed crew. Yeah, and Maningahela, they didn't sail the luff either. They just was all square surface area. Don't you hate this guy? So I got to follow you. This guy. This is not a fat, entitled, obviously rich, white male, and with a babe on his arm. You not only got in the view, he is the view. He is the view. And we had many days of watching. I don't know how many sunsets we saw. It's really good, right? It really is the best. If you like that kind of thing, it's really good. So we spent 3 weeks together in Polynesia. It was really great. And then from there, straight here, the horn. Thank God for the horn. I love the horn. Like there's no show me another sport like the Super Bowl, maybe. But like it's, there's only one and only one horn. This puts Mount Everest to bed, completely to bed, right? Like I never been to Mount Everest. I've seen it, but now you've seen the once again, follow the money, the circus going on there. But you would never know anybody was ever here at the Horn. It's really spectacular. But I got a little disappointed for you. I had no trouble at the Horn. I had pure joy at the Horn, and I had a lot of fun at the Horn. And with Poppy, I got a little bit of flirtatious fun at the Horn. I mean, it was absolutely fantastic. So my little story of PIXIE around the Horn is not going to raise your eyebrows up or anything, right? Because that all happens later. Right? I knew I got off pretty easy here, but what happened was about 4 or 5 days before I got to the Horn, French Pol, back up for a minute. French Polynesia is at 24 south. So you got to go from 24 south to 56 south. And trade winds get you to about 30. And then it's variables to about 40 or so, 35, 40. And then it's the roaring 40s and furious 50s there on down. But the lee coast of Patagonia, claimed the Milky Way is right there. You got to go right down the edge of the Milky Way. Don't get too close because it's a lee shore, obviously. And you got an adverse current with the Humboldt current coming up the Patagonian coast. And so about 4 days away from the Horn, Mike and Kathy says, well, I had a hankering to go to the Falkland Islands. So I decided, I think I'll go to the Falkland Islands. That sounds like I always wanted to go there, right? So anyway, going to the Falkland Islands, and they said, well, don't go to the Falkland Islands yet, man. There's a 40, 50 knot storm that can be right there when you get there. As soon as you're around the Horn, bam, straight into 50 knots. Do not go there. Hang out in Tierra del Fuego for a few days and cool your jets a little bit. Take your time easy. And I said, aye, Captain. Oh yeah, I'll do that. Doing that. So I ran around on the foredeck with that 35-pound lead anchor from new deck, in the middle of the ocean, and because I had taken the anchor and put her to bed completely. Bring it all out and bring up the hose pipe and hang it over the side and do all that stuff in light air. And then it got going. And the next day, I remember it was the first really powerful day we had. It must have been around 50 south. I can't remember. I never took any pictures. I was too busy living. I'm no millennial. I was actually doing it rather than recording it, Yeah. So anyway, it was really good. It was running down, and it was about 60, 80 miles off the Milky Way. Dead downwind. It was coming right behind me, and the current was coming right on the nose. So the waves, I think, were steep, and it was blowing 30 knots. So it wasn't 35. It was like 25 to 30 knots. I can't forget exactly. But if you've been in a racing sailboat, I've only experienced a few times a racing sailboat when you're running downwind with the spinnaker and the bow wave goes carried right back to the stern, and it's foaming right beside the gunwales, right at the cockpit. And you stay roaring around there like that. Well, PIXIE had her nose down a little bit on the surface. The size of the waves was the speed of the boat, and we were only doing 7 or 8 knots or whatever. But we were just roaring along in a wing-on-wing pattern with a single reefed, double reefed main and a half a jib, just absolutely rocking. The whole thing was humming. It was totally wonderful. And albatrosses were swooping around. The harder it blows, the more the albatrosses. You gotta love the albatross. I just love the albatross. I got a spiel on the albatross, hopefully later. Anyway, it went all day long, and I knew I had to turn left and turn underneath Tierra del Fuego between Diego Ramirez and the end of Tel Fuego, and then broad reach towards the. Oh yeah, I got. Here it is. You gotta turn left. Clever. Yeah. So you came down and we had to turn left. It's not so obvious here with the way we drew it, and then head for the Horn. The next picture is even better, I think. Yeah, we get around and head for the Horn. So, and then it all fogged in, and it was, I don't know, it was like miserable, wet, and blowing like crazy. But put the jibe the main over, and then put the main to bed, and with a half a jib was rocking along through the night, heading for the Horn, and took a nap for a couple hours or whatever, and woke up with a bit of light. Went up, and the fog was just lifting, and the wind had dropped right down, and there was Tierra del Fuego's icy peaks on the port side. I felt like I was all turned around. I felt like I was in the Strait of Juan de Fuca with the Olympic Peninsula. I should have been on the wrong. It was on the wrong side. It was on the Canadian side, but they're more like the Alps. They were really steep and pointy, not those bald, those ridgy sort of mountains of the Olympic Peninsula. But these were like really steep, and they were at the bottom top 2/3 was all ice, and it was all misty. It was right out of J.R.R. Tolkien sort of book style, man. It was absolutely wonderful. So I misdiagnosed the horn, figured I could see the horn coming on my port side, and I danced around the cockpit and got there. And I got there and I realized it's not quite right. And then another 20 miles further, there was the real horn, right? So I had like 4 or 5 hours of this downwind running, and the sun came out and the cloud all burned away, and the breeze held at about 10 knots, and the sea was less than 1.5 meters. It was absolutely glorious. Oh, I was perfectly healthy. I'd had a good nap in the middle of the night. I was having this wonderful time heading for Cape Horn. I thought, oh, I'll turn all my radio and everything on again, right? I never, I don't do that very often. I haven't seen a single ship or sign of humanity for 6 weeks since I left Gambier, right? So anyhow, so I put everything all on, and I turned the music up, and I'm dancing around in the cockpit, happy as Larry. It was just one of the most happiest mornings of my life. And all of a sudden, I hear a radio crackle, and he says, PIXIE, PIXIE, PIXIE. There's this, dare I say, French voices barking at me on the radio. Like, holy shit, I've never heard PIXIE's voice on the radio in my whole life, but whatever, right? And I charged down the ladder, and I, PIXIE, PIXIE here, how can I help you? And there's this French voice is giving me heck over the radio. It's like, where are you? What are you doing? You're not answering you're like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know I had the radio on too loud. I couldn't hear the radio down there because I had the music playing in the cockpit, right? Because the customs really wants to, the military is not happy. They're trying to get a hold of you. You're not answering. And I said, okay, all right, already. So okay. So I picked up the radio, because they were probably listening to this thing, because now I'm only like 5 miles from the horn, and there was a ship further south. And so there was the horn to the north, and then PIXIE, and then about that distance again, another half a mile, there was this, big, 300-foot shiny navy blue, lots of glass tourist boat, whatever, hanging around, looking, taking pictures of the horn. And here's PIXIE charging in right in between them, right? And this guy's giving me shit for not answering the radio, right? So, I'm in trouble now. What am I in trouble? Right? This is terrible. So I go on the phone. This is PIXIE, Coast Guard. Do you copy? Whatever. And this gorgeous Latino voice. Oh, senor, this gorgeous. You could tell is a youngish female, so friendly, full on Spanish. So I click into my Spanglish right off the bat, right? Fell in love with her immediately. She's just so sweet, right? Oh, so glad you made the photos. Oh, no. I'm plus I was a little excited, so it's hard to remember all my Spanish, right? Lo siento, mi amiga, oh, lo siento, forgive me, whatever. And so she's speaking, then she breaks into her Spanglish, and we're chatting away in Spanglish, and I was practically ready. I should try throw in there that I'm happily married man or something, just to kind of ease the tension a little bit, right? And she says, where are you from? Where are you going? And Canadian. Oh, Canadian. And here's your last port of call. Oh, Gambier. Okay, thank you very much, Captain. Muchas gracias. Let's see. Please wait, whatever. Okay. So I'm waiting. About 20-30 minutes later, she comes back on, like, oh, this is all good. She says, that's great. And by this time I got my act together. I said, you know what? I'm really tired. Kind of a little bit of a white line. You're really, really tired. I need a rest. I'm just a hazard unto myself. I really need to drop the hook. I won't come ashore or anything. I won't come ashore. I've really got to take a break. I'm afraid I'm going to have an accident. Oh, no problem. She said, no problem. Oh, goodness. And I said, okay, well, I'm just going to go up north and I'll find a bay. Oh, that's fine. That's very, very good. She says, thank you. Thank you so much. And somebody said, whatever you do, don't mention the Falklands to Argentina. Don't ever mention the Falklands. You're getting in big trouble if you mention the Falklands. And I was so excited about the horn and everything, I forgot, was this Chilean territory or Argentinian territory? Like, I should know that, but I couldn't think it, and I was too busy sailing to worry about it. So I just won't mention the Falklands, right? And she, where's your going next port of call? And I said, Cape Town, going to Cape Town. And then she talks to her buddies back there. Oh, he's a solo sailor navigator. He's going to Cape. Oh, really? They're all yakking back and forth. They're also so friendly. You just want to come in for a cup of tea, right? She was just so sweet, right? After this French guy is giving me heck for not answering the phone. So anyway, you can see on the chart here between Isle Herschel and Deceit, there's a little pass. It's like cattle pass. It's about five miles north of Cape Horn. And as I'm approaching that thing, you can see a great big military vessel on the other side of the strait coming my way. So I hove to, just hung out because it's very narrow in there. And this guy's got a really big gun on the thing on the front deck, right? And oh God. And next thing my radio goes off again, PIXIE, PIXIE, PIXIE. Oh God, now I gotta explain the whole thing. He said, what is your intention? Where are you going? And I said, well, I repeated the whole story again. He heard it before, I'm pretty sure. I said, I'm really tired. But I won't go ashore. I said, I won't go ashore. I'm padding my story because, I don't want to get turned down. Oh yeah, that's fine. He said, where are you going? I said, oh, this Sutterley Bay. And Sutterley Bay, I'm thinking it's up there in Wolster. And he said, oh, Skipper, I know a boat like yours. I think you'd be better off to go to a Matrimonial Bay. It's half the distance. It's really close. It's great holding. I really recommend that one. I think you should give that a consideration, right? So here's this gunboat captain who stopped his engines or outside the thing. We're having this friendly little chat, and he gives me friendly instructions as to where to go and whatnot. So I dipped my ensign, and he had about 10 guys on the deck of his front boat. They're all with binoculars up there staring, and they dipped their flag, and it was just totally wonderful. And I sailed up into this little bay. It's absolutely perfect. And I sailed up in there and around the bay, and it's like 12 feet of water, and dropped the hook. And then I got the paper charts out because I never planned on ever going in there. I was going around it. And we are blessed with Lynn and Larry's 1 in 50 and 1 in 100,000 chart when they rounded the horn with their lines of position, their dead reckoning, where they hove to. And I've studied that ad nauseum, never once ever looked at the land. I looked all at the chart, and I look on Larry's chart, and there's Larry written on that bay. Excellent anchor sign, good holding, 10 to 15 feet, no rocks, no kelp. Larry nailed it. He absolutely nailed it, right? So anyway, I'm going there. It was absolutely perfect. It was just like a dream. The wind dropped the hook under sail, fell back 10 to 1 scope. I mean, it was beautiful. You go to PIXIE's blog, and you can see this bay is absolutely perfect. It's got 280-degree protection, and there's this beautiful little summit just got my name all over it, on the top of this mountain, was staring at me, right? So we had to make a party, me and Scuppers had a little party, and Wilson, we had a little party in the bottom of in the cockpit of PIXIE. You can see Wilson here, thanks to my Wilson team. And we had this big party. I had a major hangover the next day. The wind blew like I've never heard blow, like blow, right? We were rock solid. I had 2 50-foot snubbers out there, like violin strings. I don't know what it was, but I turned the wind instruments on, and they're gone. The wind just blew itself apart in the middle of that night. So that was the end of the wind instruments, right? Anyhow, woke up in the morning around 2 o'clock. It was dead calm. Put the dinghy together, rowed to shore, and hiked up that little mountain. It was absolutely glorious. And I could see this entire archipelago underneath this big, heavy black cloud. It was a dream trip, an absolute dream trip. Scampered down, shortcut, took twice as long over the foliage to get to the boat, rowed back out, and had a nap, woke up 4 o'clock, and it's a beautiful little 5-knot offshore breeze, pulled the anchor up by hand, and sailed off for the Falklands. Absolutely beautiful. No question. Those islands would be fun to cruise. I got to admit, they really look good. When you get up high and look down on them all, there's not a tree to be had anywhere, and nor habitation. But it's really, so my horn story was not really all that tough or anything. And until that night, when I was sailing in Downwind, it was a gentle breeze and blowing me straight for this Strait of Le Maire, and I wanted to head off right, but the wind was blowing right, so I just went for it. And then I was making myself a triple, not a double, but a triple down below, because I was getting a little tired at midnight, and then it hit me like a bombshell, like a boom, right? And next thing you know, I got lee shore, Le Maire Strait and Staten Island dead ahead, and full suit of sails. I had to sort of put all that back down to bed, put up the trysail and the staysail, and reach off across past Staten Island. Staten Island, heading for the Falklands. And it was good. Hang on, we'll just go straight to the click. Yeah, so now we're in the Southern Ocean. That's the whole reason why we're here tonight to talk about the Southern Ocean, right? So it was like 8 or 9,000 miles to the Horn, and then 14,000 miles around the Southern Ocean. So I'm gonna take a few minutes. My other favorite topic besides trade wind sail plan is boat choice for cruising. And I mentioned a little bit of psychology, home alone, being an anesthesiologist, spent a lot of time up there all by yourself. And as a teenager, romping around in the mountains by myself, I like myself. I'm okay with that. And you know what? It was no problem. It was a 1 year reading break. Cruisers need to be able to read, and reading is fantastic. So I got like 69 books on my reading log, and so I had that conversation all the time of be it Tolstoy or Herman Hesse or Melville. I had a wonderful time reading these books. Jane Austen, fantastic. Ayn Rand, you name it. I read all those basic classic books. But boat choice. Now, why did we choose PIXIE over Terwin? How we got one more? We want to go to the next one, please, love. I'm going to skip that. I'm going to skip that one. Yeah, that was this little song interlude, but I'm like talking. So yeah, so we got two half hull models here. The bottom is Terwin and the top one is PIXIE. So I'm going to sort of outline a few of the reasons why we chose these boats to sail around the world twice. First time down below and the second one up above with PIXIE. They're more similar than different. So they're both 37 feet overall. PIXIE's only 28 feet on deck, of course, but they're both 37 overall, and they're both relatively narrow relative to today's cruising sailboats. There's 10-10 and 10-1 beam, but they both have very barn-like door, stern-hung rudders protected by what's in front. So they're very protected rudders, and they're a little bit less deep than the keels. They both have very low freeboard for the length of the vessel. They got sweet shears, both of them. They're both cutters. They're both aft cockpit. They both have tillers versus wheels. Wheels, if you think, is like the only thing dumber than a wheel on a cruising sailboat is two wheels. Two wheels, like all that extra stuff when really is, like no moving parts. The tiller brings the crew forward under the dodger, so he's safe from bad stuff. He brings them close to the rest of the crew, so there's no physical barrier. It's very much more mechanically sound and simple and effective for servo pendulum, wind vane sort, whatever. And PIXIE is spectacular for the trim tab vertical wind vane system. We'll see that in a few minutes. Terwin had a monitor wind vane servo pendulum and worked 99% of the time, was just fantastic. Then I didn't have enough time to practice with PIXIE's trim tab freehand steering. I didn't have the confidence, and the Terwin was so good. So we added a monitor wind vane on the back of PIXIE, and it never worked out nearly as well as the freehand steering. So the monitor got a free ride all the way around on the second trip around because it had issues with chafe. No matter how many times I keep adjusting and readjusting and trying, it worked, but it was a nuisance compared to PIXIE's freehand steering. They're both cutters, true cutters. And but the big difference you can see is the underwater stuff. You can see, and they're both 25-year-old American quality factory built boats that have gone out of production. They got whooped out of the market thanks to the production lines of the European boats. So they're both 25 years old. They're both solid glass, and PIXIE's got an internal keel. Terwin's is bolted on the bottom of that. They're both very much wine glass shape. So very soft bilger. So they look at wine glass. So rather than a today's scow with a foil stuck underneath. And this is a stern view. It comes a little bit later, but we'll use it. So thanks, love. Yeah. So and if they hit something, they slide over it, right? And we ran over. It's not a matter of if you run into something, it's when you run into something, right? We've run into stuff both trips, both times, and we're talking seaworthy and sea kindly. They both heal a little bit fairly quick, or not quickly, but soon, and then stabilize when they get about 15 to 20 degrees off. Versus a modern scow, which has got hard chines and is stable in light air, but when it starts to go, it can have a jerky motion and pound on waves. These guys with their deep keel, they slice through. They don't pound. They never pound. And the big thing about ocean sailing, cruising is tracking. Both these boats track very well because they got so much keel, fore and aft stability. And they never yaw very little, and they never broach, right? Because they got so much keel in the water, right? But why Terwin lose out to PIXIE? Well, PIXIE's a little cuter down below. Is more. She's smaller, but it's down below. It's very nautical and very sweet for a couple. They're both one couple boats, by the way. That's the other thing. Yeah, and but the main thing was that you can see on Terwin, the keel is cut away in the forefront there, and then it has it's called a spoon bow, quite a windward, prominent windage in the bow, which is good flotation, but it also good air blocking too. So when heaving to with Terwin was tough. Maybe I didn't really learn enough how to do it. You'll see we only did it a few times, and we just could never get that boat to heave to adequately, and the motion heave to was not good. We weren't happy, and we're, as you know, Lynn and Larry Pardee acolytes, and so Storm Tactics is still the best book of nautical intelligentsia I have ever read, and highly recommend the Storm Tactics by the Pardees. I'm sure it saved my life, quite frankly. And PIXIE is just a slightly scaled down Taliesin, so she's closer to Taliesin than Seraphim. But anyhow, it's that full keel, so that it stands up, the bow stands up into the waves. And one last little thing. Oh yeah, and so the PIXIE is a BCC, Bristol Channel Cutter, modeled after the 17th and 18th, 19th century channel cutters, built to go out in all weather and then heave to out in the Bristol Channel or the western approaches to the United Kingdom in all weather. You got to be fast to get there, small crew to get home, and tough. And the Terwin William Creelock took the designs from Colin Atkins, you know, the Norwegian architect, the Norwegian lifeboats and whatnot. So anyway, they both have history, these sails. We took PIXIE over Terwin because she heeled to better. They took a defensive posture. One little issue is you can see the stern of PIXIE, that at the very aft corner where the shadow line, it bulges out at you a little bit. That's called the buttocks, and she's got a full buttock. So when she heels over under pressure of the sail, that picks up that extra buoyancy, and she holds up and can take a better press of sail. So she's downwind. She's better. You can see Terwin is scooped away there, so she doesn't squat, but she doesn't stand up to that extra pressure like PIXIE does, and under high pressure wind off the beam. So this was the mission. This was the job here. This is the Southern Ocean, of course. At 1 o'clock, we enter the Southern Ocean, coming due south from the Gambier Archipelago. 3 o'clock is Cape Horn. 6 o'clock is Cape Agulhas in South Africa. And then Lewin at the left-hand side of Australia, and then Tasmania and New Zealand, the 5 great southern capes. It's about 14,000 miles all the way around. How are we doing?
Good.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's 14,000 miles around. So 6 months of my life is the trade winds was the most wonderful year of my life, and this is definitely the most exciting year of my life. This was really great. The whole idea was to go down there and see what the Southern Ocean was. You can see how the prevailing westerlies blow all the way around with no obstructing landmass, and they go all the way around. And the further south you go, the more and the bigger the albatrosses are. They fly around and around and around Antarctica nonstop, the wandering and royal albatrosses. And they are as I said in that little chit chat, they are the quintessential life force of the Southern Ocean. You got to just love the albatross, and how Coleridge, never having been to the Southern Ocean, focused on the albatross as the creature of the entire region is astounding, is absolutely astounding. They are everywhere when the wind blows, and they're totally glorious. I mean, my arm span is like 5 feet, almost 5 feet. These guys are 13 feet. Can you imagine? 13 feet of wingspan. PIXIE is 10'1", and these birds are 12 to 13 feet. So their wingspan is 3 feet wider than PIXIE's beam. I mean, It's surrealistic. It's absolutely surrealistic. And they're curious and they follow around and they got these beautiful 100 or 200 meter circles, and they never move the muscles. They hook their humeruses on their scapula and they hang there, and they don't even, their heart rates drop right down. They're resting and they can even sleep in the breeze, right? You just can't help stop it. I don't know how many hours I stood in that companionway just watching them because they're so beautiful. And I took some pictures of it and I showed a friend and said, well, what's with the seagull? Why are pictures of the seagulls? Like, it just doesn't catch it, like a seagull's a seagull, like, but an albatross is a real deal. It's got to be the world's it's the most glorious, graceful creature I've ever seen. It's like Daisy, the Great Dane on wing. They're huge, they're big, beautiful. Okay, so that was the mission. So we went around the Horn at 3 o'clock, and we're making our way to Cape actually, when we left the Falklands, I was going to head for Tasmania. I figured that'd be a good spot to go. But to round the Horn is not underneath that rock. To round the Horn is from 50 south on the Atlantic to 50 south in the Pacific, or vice versa. So it's 700 miles down south and then 700 miles back at an angle. So it's closer to 1,500 miles to round the Horn, actually. And I never quite made it. I left the Falklands, which is at 52 south, heading north and east as usual, with no wind instruments now because they went kaputzi that night in Tierra del Fuego. And until this night, I never believed in rogue waves. I always figured rogue waves was like, hooey, right? Like, yeah, right. For one thing, they're not all 2 meters, they're not all 4 meters, they're not all 6 meters. They're all over the shop, and they keep changing every couple of hours. I went down there for the waves, and the waves are incredible, but they change all the time. The entire time around with Terwin, I never once thought, gee, that looks scary. I wonder if it was going to turn the boat over. Any chance we could roll over? You think that thing's going to break all over us and knock us down? Never, ever entered my mind. Never, ever. And just every day in the Southern Ocean, I think to myself, is that a breaking sea? Is that a dangerous sea? Is that one going to got our name on it? Could that thing roll us over? Is that... it get creeps into your soul, and you're always looking at it thinking, my God, should I bear off more? Should we put more down, more sails? Should we heave to? How bad is this seal? How dangerous is this seal? I mean, like, you can't train. I don't think you can really sort of going with someone. I didn't know. And you went down there to find out. Anyway, about 2-3 days out of the Falkland Islands, I was still south of 50. It's 51 or 50 something, and was running on no big deal. It was like no mainsail, but a half a jib and a full staysail, and 130-40 degrees off. It was just tickety-boo, lickety split, no problem, all good. I'd filled up the whole sink with 10 bottles of 2.5 liters of fresh drinking water, because I was going to go so far, and it was right there on the dock in Port Stanley. And we had this coming because we quite frankly brag about PIXIE's great big handy deep sink. We're very proud of this boat sink, if you could believe it. And I had that sink full of water right on the port side, and I'm sleeping on the starboard side, and I was asleep sort of, and it's dark, and I could sense something changed, and you kind of brace yourself a little bit, and we went over and went over and over, and then it started raining those water bottles on my head, like the whole thing, the whole port side of the boat, even though I'd kind of prepared for anything. It was all dumping over on the bilge. Water ran all up into the chart table. I mean, from the bottom of the bilge, it ran up and up onto the side of the boat, and all the stuff on the port side came over on the starboard side, including these 25 liters of fresh water, which broke because they're recycled OJ bottles, and 3 or 4 of them broke over my head in the bunk, and 3 or 4 broke over the chart table, soaked all the charts, and knocked out the battery monitor, and 3 or 4 broke over the quarter berth, which was covered with 2 milk crates filled with sailing junk, sail stoppers, extra winch handle, a couple pairs of gloves, and a headlamp, and a toque, and bits and pieces. And I didn't know it because I was so busy protecting myself from these falling objects that about 5 or 10 liters of water drained through that milk crate down and held onto the quarter berth because of the fiddle that holds the mattress that normally lives in the quarter berth, and drained and then through the hole into the battery box. unbeknown to me, right? Didn't know that. Anyway, so and when I went up on deck, the Dodger was ripped off, and the solar panels were all ripped off. They're all dangling away on the leeward side. The cockpit was emptied. My very, very favorite black special private ablutions bucket, Gonzo, and air the lines are draining in the water, and the cockpit was emptied, and all the canvas was ripped off as gongs show upstairs. Put it all back together best you can, and survived our first knockdown. So where we were past 90 degrees, we may have been 120. I don't know what we were, but we were way over, and it shouldn't have happened. What's with that? Like, there was no big deal. It was like whatever, right? Anyhow, the next night I came in from a sail change in the middle of the night. Now the wind's picked up. We're still romping along and whatever. There's a moment of truce when you're coming out of the cockpit with the plexiglass washboard, where you got a holding onto that heavy washboard. Don't lose it, because it's the major integrity piece. And then you're stepping over the threshold and put the washboard back in the thing and fix it with the pin. This very clever pin, by the way, Brent. That pin's never ever failed. This is spectacular pins. I just love PIXIE's pins. You want to see how you secure your washboard? You come, I'll show you how Blackline does it. It's really good. Anyway, so I'm stepping into the cockpit. I take 2 steps, sniff, smoke. Smoke. I thought to myself, smoke. That's not good. That's not good. What's smoke doing here? I haven't run the engine since Gambier. It's been 2 months since the engine turned on or whatever, right? Whoa, that's not good. And start digging in the engine box. The engine compartment's empty. I'm digging all around, and then took all this crap off the quarter berth and open up the box to the batteries, and just billowing out of there, just smoke just pouring out of the, oh God, whatever, right? And cleverly enough, turned the batteries off, and couldn't see through the smoke to see where the problem was, but I could see there was like 3 liters of water sloshing around underneath the battery box with all the electrical wires and whatever goes on, the major bus and where the AC/DC. Oh God, bad place for water, man. And it's watertight because you only get in from the top, right, where you drain through. Anyhow, so I'm mopping and bailing my battery box, right, got all the water out, and put some paper towels galore, dried it all out, and then drill some limber holes so the next time it happens, the water comes out. And I figured my troubles were over. Then about at the same time, all that water filling the cockpit was also filled with water. So in my cleverness, I put duct tape over the engine panel because I don't want to get water into the keyway of the engine, right? That's not good corrosion either, right? So I put the duct tape over the engine display panel with the on-off buttons and the keyway. Little did I know that about 2 months earlier, the nipple that holds the stop button had come off, got knocked and came off, and it was flush with the thing. So the duct tape must have depressed the kill button. Not good. No, I didn't know, whatever, right? So about 3 days later, I come in from another sail change, same thing, smoke. Big time smoke. Now I'm back into the battery box. It had to be the battery box. No, the battery box was not it. The battery box was sweet. There was no problem. Open up the garbage to get into the engine compartment. Thick, billowing smoke. So here we are we're right there about 4 o'clock on the chart. Thick, billowing smoke, filling the whole boat. I thought I said, geez, maybe I should close it. Give oxygen to fire is not a good thing. That's not good. But I got to find the source of this thing. So and I had fire blankets and 2 fire extinguishers at the ready to go. Turn the battery switch off again. Learned my lesson on that one, and close it all up, and then went back into 10 minutes. It was thinner and thinner. Can't see with a headlamp through smoke. It's just smoke, right? And in that engine compartment is the S-bar heater, or maybe that turned on. Maybe that was working, right? Is the water maker. I'd use that too. Maybe this got fire, or the engine, but it's never been run for 2 months and whatever, right? Anyhow. But I just stopped with the engines the power turned off, and I couldn't think for the life of me, but there's no more smoke. So I checked the sails, whatever, and we put my head down for another hour or so, woke up and in daylight and tried to figure it out and pawed around back in there and made all kinds of ideas what it would be. And then thought, well, we'll put on the power. We'll see. As soon as I flipped the switch to put the battery on, smoke immediately came off the kill solenoid. the kill solenoid had been on for whoever knows how long, and now it burned through the rubber coating and all the rubber and plastic that surrounds the kill solenoid to the Beta Marine engine had dripped off and ignited and was burning and laying in the engine pan and all draped all over the engine. So 2 fires in 1 week and 1 major knockdown, all in 10 days. So then I figured maybe I'll go to Cape Town and get this sort of sorted out a little bit, since we had such a great time. Poppy and I had a great time in the Royal Cape Yacht Club, and being Rick Yacht Club people, then we could drawing on the map. That's fun. We get, so we went to the Royal Cape Yacht Club. Kathy phoned Claire, and Claire phoned Royal Cape, and they looked at me, put me up with Peter, and he looked after me. And within 5 days, I had everything all fixed. We had the engineer, the canvas repair guy, the electrical guy, the electronics guy, all waiting on the dock when I showed up in Royal Cape Yacht Club on another pristine berth, treated with wined and dined and treated so beautifully, and was out of there in 5 days and heading for Hobart or Tasmania, and Hobart. We left Cape Town on February the 6th. There was no such thing as COVID. It never happened. And so now the next leg is let me just see where we got here. I got this. Oh, we're gonna have a video. Here's a
I
line.
have no idea.
I don't know if you
what
got
that-
the lines all over your screen. We got somebody drew a picture all over the screen, but that's okay. It's whatever. Anyway, so now the Southern Ocean. So now the next couple of videos is a typical. You saw a typical day in the trade winds, and this is a typical great day in the Southern Ocean. So this one here is April the 1st. And you'll see I'm so excited. I call PIXIE Terwind, and I call the boom the mainsail. But aside from that, it's pretty close to the action. But this is just a beautiful day. It's an absolutely, I'm sorry there's no albatrosses come into view here, but it gives you a sense of the destination Southern Ocean. And it was just a wonderful day. Here we go. Good morning. Good morning. It's April the 1st. No kidding. 2020. And I'm just going to show you a little sunrise. You can see the instruments here. You can see on the left-hand side the chart plotter. We're headed due east, 90 degrees true. You can see on the picture, Terwind's got a trail behind her, due east, and due west, pointing straight east. We're doing 6 knots. You can see there, and we got 15 knots of breeze, but it goes up to 22 knots of breeze and 7.6 speed over the ground. So we'll have that in a minute, but have a look at the sunrise before it totally goes away. Yeah, pretty nice. Pretty nice. I came up to tuck in another reef in the main. We got a single reef in there right now, but the wind is going up and up and up, and we better get her down before we roll too much and put a pole in the water. You can see the spinnaker pole is up very high to match the clew on the roller furling jib, and the main is actually lifted up quite a bit with the topping lift, and you can see if it's not exactly horizontal. Whoa! It's not horizontal, it's lifted up, the distal end is lifted. We're trying to look at the sunrise as it pops up in front as we're headed due east. We're 102 degrees east longitude and 43 degrees south. So we're in the Southern Ocean. We're about 800 miles east. Yeah, no, west, excuse me. We're about 800 miles west of Cape Lewin. So we're just about ready to straight. Oh, God, look at that sunrise. Wow, it's fantastic. Yeah, so I'm going to watch it here. I just feel kind of naked down below, all not dressed up if we ever, God forbid, accidental jibe. We got a preventer on there, and you can see the boom brake right there. The boom brake is on. I haven't quite finished it, so I think we're just tuning it up, and the preventer running to hold it up there. Yeah, and a full roller furling jib. Pretty much full. Well, one reef. Anyhow, there's beautiful sunrise. I'm going to pan around 360. So heading at south, Antarctica is down there. This is the running back stay, running billy hold stay. And Monty 2 has her. And there's our wake. Oh my God, look at that. Pixie doesn't leave a wake like that very often. We're moving pretty good. Woo! What a morning.
Frida's on hold. I mean, on the bench, just kind of watching stuff go by. We're dead downwind, you can see, and continuing around. It's looking north. Oh, there she goes. Anyway, 6-8. What do we got here? We got 18 knots of breeze, 6-7 over the ground. A little favorable current. Due east. Oh my God. I don't want to do too much. It's so perfect. When it hits over 20, we'll see if we can watch it for a moment. See if it goes over 20. Well, look at the sunrise. I'll flip it down if we get up on speed. Oh, there we go. So 6-8, not bad for 28 or 26 feet water line. Coming down a wave. Woo! You. Another one. 19 knots breeze. I should have been out here 10 minutes ago when the sunrise was really great, but there's 7 knots. See that? 7-1, 2. Went down a little wave. Woo! Nice. There's 20 knots. Whoa. 21. What are we gonna do here? 20 and 7.3 knots over the ground. Not bad. Wow. Too bad you can't hear. 7.4. Oh my God. You see, we're straight downwind with the wind indicator second from the right. Yeah. Yeah. Just riding beautifully. A little bit too much roll down below though, it makes you a little nervous. I really put in a second reef in the main and furl some of that jib. I'm gonna do that right before I put this video away. Okay, here we go, 20 knots. Woo! 22 knots, 23 knots, see that? 24 went by. Yeah, pretty good speed. Right down the pipe too, heading due east. How wonderful. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for watching.
So we got one more little sailing video and then a couple of heave to videos and some chit chat. But maybe at 7:30 we should take a break so people can get organized a little bit, and then we'll finish off after that. Is that okay? We think? What do you say, team?
That would be good. So we'll come back again in what, 10 minutes?
Sure. Roger
Okay.
that.
So
So 7:40 BC time and 8:40 here in Alberta.
Perfect. Thank
Okay.
you.
How come for that stretch there, you were no longer using the twin Genoas as you had before?
Oh, may I talk to that?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
of course.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, that's good. I got a little lazy there. Like I used wing on wing. I've gone on and on and on about the Hassey twins versus wing on wing, and I'm a real pro advocate for wing on wing. For the twins to keep the center of effort far forward. But I got a little lazy, and it was all night long, and I'd probably been broad reaching, and it just fell off into that. And so rather than put the main to bed and drag out the drifter and whatnot, I just I fell off, and much to my amazement, it's pretty darn stable. Also, you can see that I never had a single accidental jibe aside of really light airs when I was just drifting along on big swells. But when the wind was blowing, I think maybe PIXIE's more stable with that longer keel, but my theory is versus Terwin made me a little worried that and it's not that wasn't as stable because the asymmetry of the centers of effort from the two main sails. But so because the ocean was so wild, I didn't put the twins up that much in the Southern Ocean because the wind was so powerful. If I was running downwind, I could run with just a jib, period, right? I didn't need two head sails. And so sometimes if I get caught, I may just run the main. And if it got any stronger, the first thing I do is put the main to bed and just run with the jib and shut and close the jib down. You don't need. We got way more sail power than we need, and we don't need that main. So I was just being a little greedy there, and that's why I was doing 7+ knots, right? Plus it was morning time, so it was been night all night, and I don't want to I do minimal if I can at night and just hang in there till daylight. And there's a video coming right up, actually taken later that same day on April the 1st, and it's blowing 35, 36 knots, and I'm down to half a jib, and the main is long put to bed, and she's just rocking, same. So there's more than one way to skin a kitty cat, I guess. Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
so let's take that 10-minute break now, Bill. You're going to probably want one, and we do. And then before you start again, John's got a couple of brief announcements for the Calgary section.
Thank you, Ted. That's great.
Okay.
Hi, Bill. Can you hear me? Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, we
Gene,
did.
yeah, absolutely. Gene Socrates, our hero. Can you hear us?
Yeah, sorry, I haven't got the, I should maybe put my, the viewing on. I've got my video off, but my audio is on. But anyway, yeah, enjoying your story. And interesting about not using your twin head sails down in the Southern Ocean, because, you know, oh hell, what's his name? The guy that's got the last chapter in the stormy weather book. Can't remember his name now. Anyway, he always ran twin head sails in the Southern Ocean, tiny ones pulled out.
Yeah.
And I always felt it was a good way to go. So interesting that you found that PIXIE was well balanced enough not to need it. I was mainly running a tiny staysail all the time.
Yeah, sometimes I never bothered, opposing our staysail to the jib, but if the wind piped up a little bit, I ended up just on the jib, and there was more than enough, and full jib was more than that I needed to keep over 6.5. And yeah, no, I'm a real advocate for the twins and the trainwinds, but PIXIE's, I'm a bit PIXIE's bowsprit. I have to go out there like 5 feet, right, and it's a wash now and then, so I was a little hesitant unless I really thought that would make a difference, and it didn't seem to make a difference, provided I kept 1 or 2 reefs in the main. And they're big reefs; they're 30% each, so there wasn't much mainsail up when I was up. But yeah, and the jib full, much more jib than main.
Yeah, right. I mean, I mostly had the Genoa furled in, obviously in the strong conditions, and just used a staysail. And then I pulled out the staysail. I had a little tiny pole. Actually, it was made in Cape Town when I was there in 2011. I wanted a pole for my staysail, tiny little aluminium thing. It's great. And then I went wing on wing with my main swivel reefed and my little staysail, furling staysail. So it was effectively a storm jib. So my main, when it was really well reefed down, was effectively a trysail. Right. So with the 2 of those, yeah, in strong conditions. But yeah, you had a few problems with those. I lost the transmission at one point. The second lot of smoke from the engine, how did that, what was that due to?
I accidentally pushed and held with duct tape the kill solenoid switch in the engine compartment, and the kill solenoid was on full time continuously. And so it's it's a round wire, and it heated up significantly and melted all that's covering rubber, and that went on fire and dripped down. And interesting that there was flames in the engine companel as well. When I changed the engine companel finally, and you could smell the smoke in the back of the engine, the electric box up there. inside that kill switch swap, that the relay, I guess it is. And that went on, that caused flames as well, but we survived it. But yeah, bottom line, don't push your kill button down permanently.
Well, as you said, at least you survived it. So yeah, I can't remember what I did with my engine. I don't think I had a similar situation with my engine, certainly, because of course that was obviously sealed off. What I did, in fact, with the engine was to I could run it to charge if I needed to. Occasionally I did, but I had to run it in neutral, obviously. But the shaft was clamped. I'd had in Hobart in Tasmania, when I stopped there one time, I had a clamp made for my prop shaft.
Yes.
Because I was trying to stop it spinning at one point. Tony Gooch had actually sealed my engine using the cables, the control cables down to the engine.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't go into reverse. And so I, to try and stop the prop spinning, that is. So I had a clamp made for the prop shaft. So in my last round the world, I had that clamp in place and that was sealed. And so I couldn't use clearly couldn't use the prop in forward or reverse. I couldn't use the engine for that at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it always amazed me. These diesel marine engines, they run forever, but their electronics are doomed. Their electrical connections. We had the similar problems with Terwin, the leash of wires from the panel down to the starter engine were, corroded and da. Yeah, it's hard.
Well, the question is, what didn't get corroded?
Well,
Was there a zero to that?
everything did. By the time we got home, you'll find out the entire below decks, every single thing was corroded, every connection. And that was a blind spot in our preparation. I remember sitting down in the Royal Vic, looking at everything we'd done, wondering, what am I missing? What am I missing? What I was missing was those wire connections were 20 years old, and they all started rotting pretty much right out as soon as we got into the cold Southern Ocean. They got wet and damp, and the dampness down below, everything got corroded. Everything was moldy and everything was corroded. It was just, to be watertight from the outside, you're watertight on the inside, and it's a hostile environment for electronics and cotton.
Yeah, I'm interested in your sliding hatch, because I had a sliding hatch, and that's the problem. Did you get water coming through?
No, I love my sliding hatch. It's so cool. And we have Blackline made a garage for the top part. So the front 2/3 has a watertight casing facing, from the forward aft, and the turtle part, is just the last 3 feet.
I never understood.
Yeah, Michael Budd, you need to,
yes, dear.
You need to mute yourself.
Mute yourself, gorgeous.
Oh, sorry there.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's all right. So, it's all right. You're young. You get it. Anyway, so yeah, no, the hatch was really good, and it would rattle a little bit. I just stuff a little bit of paper towel as usual in there and stop the rattle. But I got pinned for the vertical hatch board and a when the horizontal, another pin up there, and the two of them are connected together. And I was very diligent and always have those under control so that it was always locked from displacement.
Okay, Bill?
Yeah, I actually had water coming
Carry
through
on
my hatch.
anymore? Bill, we should,
Okay.
John needs to make some announcements, and then we'll get on with you again.
Okay.
Excellent.
Announcement.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
thanks, Ted and Pam. Thanks. So again, welcome everybody. Just a couple of reminders for the Calgary and Alberta BCA members. We had a kind invitation from Glenmore Sailing Club to attend event tomorrow night about the Iron Duck, which is the incredible story of setting the world land speed record for yachts. So I hope many of you can join us for that. For all BCA members, just a reminder that we have an incredible OCA event with John Kretschner on March 6th. He is somebody who's spent his life sailing around the planet and is one of the foremost teachers of ocean sailing. So we're fortunate to have him, and I hope go look at registering for that. And then finally, we have a lot of guests tonight. So just a quick word about BCA, or Bluewater Cruising Association. We have chapters in Alberta and Vancouver Island and Nanaimo, Victoria, and in Vancouver. We usually get together about once a month, and it's a great evening where we can sit back, relax, and listen to tales of sailing to exotic lands. It's a wonderful chance to make some new friends. If you like wine, you can enjoy some of that as well. And there are also a lot of educational opportunities that teach you everything from basic sailing skills to advanced ocean sailing skills to how to fix and look after boats. You don't actually have to sail to join BCA. You just have to enjoy a good time and good company. So I hope some of you will look at the potential of BCA if you're looking for something else to do with your time. That's quite wonderful. And with that, I'll turn it back to Ted and Pam to reintroduce our guest tonight.
Okay, Bill, or John, thanks very much with that. And for just to add to what you just said, the BCA does have a website. And if people go on that, it's just Google Bluewater Cruising Association Canada, and it'll come up, and you can go and you can see what's on offer there and how to join. Bill, that was very interesting. I would remind everyone that if you want to have questions for Bill, if you would send them by chat to Pam and I, which is Calgary Communications, or Cal Communication, then we will take a look at those and then pass them on to Bill at the end of the next section, which will be the end of his actual presentation. Otherwise, Bill, take it away.
I'm just going to share the.
Thank you, Ted. Yeah, am I up and going? Yeah.
Yeah.
Here comes another. So that was one video. We got one last sailing video. Later that day, I was in a verbose mood, I guess, and it was April the 1st, and late in the day, and the wind is building up, and there's quite a bit of instruments on this one. Again, this is sort of geared for anesthesiologists who like numbers. You know, you like numbers. I can't believe how I keep focused on that stuff, right? But it's really great, and so it's just a wonderful day. We're having a wonderful day here, and you can see. We've been to that one. You're going to see a little bit down below. We run a noonday, and it's amazing. We say when two sailboats see each other, they're racing. Well, that isn't quite true because we're always racing all the time. We may not have the fastest boat out there. In fact, we got pretty close to the slowest boat, but we're never going anything less than the maximum speed we dare go. So, so what you're going to see is as fast as we can go. Okay, let's see this, love. I think, yeah. So we've seen this. This one, this is it. Okay, this is later that day, and make a few more mistakes to get all tongue-tied, and but it catches a little bit of the same thing when it's building. And as Devin was just saying, that was that same sail pattern. Keep changing. Now we're down to just a half a jib, and we're moving along pretty good. Okay, here we go. Try this. Hello, it's April 1st. Just thought I'd show you the chart that I've been working on. The top, the yellow there, that's Africa. And we started over here off the chart at Cape Town. And this chart is one to every 10 million. 10 million. Then we go across here and across that chart. And then I fold it over across that chart. And then this little dot over here, this little there, that's Australia, that little white, that yellow bit there, yellow. And there we are, April 1st. Each one of those squares is a noon position and the mileage on the top and the date underneath. So we did 101 miles, 111 miles today, and you see the biggest day we had was 138 4 days ago. So we're gonna go up the companionway and have a look at some of these waves, and there's a really nice wandering albatross cruising around. Well, maybe we can catch him. Okay, we're gonna go lurching up the companionway. Okay, here we are, we're up now. See if we can catch some waves and see this albatross. I don't know where he's gone. Anyway, it's blowing pretty strong. You can see it's right here, 29, 31 knots. So that's 50 kilometers an hour, whatever. And we're doing 6 and 5 and 6. We've got a tiny little bit of sail up there. And here it is, 35, 36. See that? 36. Yeah. That's knots. We don't see that very often. I haven't seen it for a month and more. There's a tiny little bit of a rotor furling jib through the main
bed, and the staysail put to bed, and the trysail put to bed. So that's the old sail we got. It's about a quarter of the roller furling jib. Yeah, and there's our position. We're 42 degrees, 52 minutes south, so in the roaring 40s, and 103 degrees meridian east longitude. So we got another 15 degrees of longitude before we get to Cape Lewin. And I'm looking out over the Albatross. I see a couple over there. And these waves, the predict wind says there's 3.5 meters. Some of them are double that, I reckon. Anyway, we're gonna see up here. Let's see, we got a few Swisher, or beautiful day. Beautiful day. It's 4 in the afternoon. And the wind is at a maximum now. And within the hour, it should go down 1 knot every couple hours right through the night. So we're not in too bad a shape. The waves are getting bigger, and they will continue with a little hysteresis after the wind slows down, but not too bad considering we're running right down with them. You can see here we're 150 degrees off the wind. Woo! Yeah, where'd that Albatross go? Yeah. We put the spinnaker pole, which had pulled out the jib, to bed about 4 hours ago before this really got rolling. And we put the double reef main to bed and lashed the boom in the gallows. So we're pretty good as we can do. So I gave you two, but he too would have to put the bloody main back up again. I don't want to do that. And besides, this is taking us right where we want to go. And it should be okay. It's going down. Hasn't blown that long. That's why the waves aren't that big. Woo! There's a big one. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah. Pretty remarkable. Look at there's our chart. Headed due east. We're a little bit northeast there. I turned it down a bit. We want to go east, not northeast. Lost my balance. Sorry. There you go. Yeah, 34, 35, 36 knots. Whoa. That's amazing. Let's see here. Yeah. They stack a little bit. 33. Yeah. Let's see if this one goes up a little bit better. Well, you can get the sound is quite impressive. Yeah. Okay, so sustained 30 knots. Whoa. That's up there. Gale force is 34 knots. Gale force is Beaufort 8. It's a gale. That's 34. There's 34. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Come on, go to 34. We're holding it here, for goodness sakes. As soon as I turn it away, it'll go up. That's what happens. Yeah. Oh my God. We'll turn it away as soon as I hit 34, I promise. I get addicted to staring at this thing. Yeah. Yeah, ain't gonna happen. Maybe it's coming down a bit now. Yeah. Wow. And of course, our Albatross is gone, so. $12 meter, 12-foot wingspan. Pretty impressive. Okay, thank you. Go ahead next. Okay, enough sunny stuff.
in the oldest extant chart we have of that shows the whole world as a globe is on a couple of ostrich eggs in Nuremberg, apparently, in 1505. And on that globe is written in the Southern Ocean, "Here be dragons." Like, where did that come from? Like, where did they pick dragons? I mean, you know, krakens in the Newfoundland or the Greenland Sea, but dragons in the Southern Ocean, right? Go figure. Was your so Pixie went out there looking for dragons, right? Well, bring it on. You got dragons? Show me your dragons. We're here for that. We're planning on that, and we put everything we could into to dealing with these dragons and looking and see if they really were there or not. So that was big in my mind. And so I had to go because in the first trip round in Terwin, once again, we only saw 2 gales. I never saw 40 knots except in off Cape Agulhas there. But really, we never really saw 34 knots plus ever, except twice. Once in the Tasman Sea, the notorious squeeze zone, heading up back into Vanuatu from New Zealand, and then again in off the east coast of South Africa, where we had our one and only episode of consecutive 200-mile days running in the Agulhas Current. So the seas were very calm, considering it was blowing 40 knots or 35 knots, and we were romping down that coast. But in the Tasman Sea, it was only 34 and change, but right on the nose, so we couldn't make headway into those 2 foot in growing meter seas. It's and to windward, it's the angle to windward that which you can point is totally dependent in a lightish displacement boat on the size of those seas. We didn't pound those waves, but they sure slowed us down. So the point was it wasn't worth it, and we were exhausted. So we hove to once, and the whole time around, I never felt we could have, would have, should have hove to, not once in the entire way in the coconut milk run. Now I'll pose that to the circumnavigation down in the Southern Ocean, and I lose count. 25 times we were in over 35 knot breeze that were spooky like crazy. And 18 times I wrote on the chart that we hove to. So I spent 18, so probably about 23 weeks hove to in that year's voyage, right? Now you can say, oh, what a chicken shit he is. He's not even doing anything, right? Well, yeah, I don't know. They look nasty to me, and who knows, right? So we hove to because that was our technique. Now, for the non-sailors, there's 4 recognized techniques in my mind to deal with heavy weather. It's not the wind that's going to kill you and going to roll your boat over and sink it and make you go swimming. And to think if you're going to survive in a life raft in the Southern Ocean is a bit of a little bit of an overstatement. I don't think that's possible, really. Anyway, so how are you going to manage that? So there's 4 ways to deal, because there's the waves that knock a boat over and then knock a boat down and then fill it with water and it goes to the bottom. It's waves, never wind. It's generally always waves. So how you deal with that? There's 4 ways. One, you can lie a hull, just put all the sails to bed, lock the boat up and go down below and then go on down on your knees and hope for the best, pray for the best. Not recommended anymore, not at all. And then there's I'll be interesting what John Kirchmeier says, because in reading his Serious Ocean, he's a fan, from what I understand, in his situation with large crews, 4 and more, of 4 reaching, where you put you go down to storm canvas and then sail into the wind just ever so slowly, and just slowly pick your way through the oncoming waves and pick your way, which is a non-starter for 2 people, particularly if they're over the age of 40. Like, I mean, you like. It wears you out real quick. The thought of steering through a storm in the Southern Ocean is a non-starter in my book. Completely, for us, for me, I know that would never happen. I know how tired you can get so quickly in the Southern Ocean. So lying a halt, forget that. 4 reaching, don't go there unless you got 4 or 5 expert salesmen to rotate through every 15 minutes. Third one, which is gaining popularity, and it's probably the most common way to do it nowadays, is running with a drogue. So you turn your stern into the waves and you go downwind with bare poles probably, and you go very fast down these waves, bow down straight in, and you slow the boat down by dragging something behind you to slow you down. And I think the current winner, and the only thing that has any kind of scientific background, is the Jordan Sea Drogue, a series of cones up to like 300 feet behind you. And we had a set of those with us on Terwin on the way around, and we gave them away to good friends, and that was the last we heard of them. but I didn't. You can only take so much stuff, right? Like so. No, do I get or do we not get another set of Seadro? But we, as we keep saying, have a wind steering apparatus, and PIXIE's got a boomkin, and way back there we got stuff hanging off our stern and a want see hydro generator. So we got a lot of fragility in the stern of our boat, and the boat is designed to heave to, and we have the party book on how to heave to, and so we hove to. Period. That's it. Like if that don't do it, bye bye Billy. Right? That's it. I painted myself in that corner and I live to tell the tale. So I credit them for saving my life. And a hove to is a miracle. It is absolute miracle. When it was really fun to do it, it was like playing for keeps. Sir Winston Churchill said, play for more than you can afford to lose and you learn the rules of the game. I love this game. I love this game immensely. It was so exciting. You'll see it in the timbre of my voice cracking away as I describe how we hove to in the Southern Ocean. And then there's another video following it that shows some of these big waves closing in on PIXIE's bow and beam. So heaving to, I'll let the video describe it, but it is the one and only way for a boat. The trouble is, if you don't have a boat with a full keel, it's not as easy to heave to. And we are testament to that with Terwin, even with that 2/3 keel, cutaway forefoot and deadwood and proud bow, she would not heave to very well. May have been the skipper's, but she didn't heave to worth poop, and hence we got rid of her, and we, bless her heart, and we got Terwin because I can't afford. So we took a defensive status, right? And leading into this, the year before I left was the 50th anniversary of Sir Robin Knox Johnson's first ever in history solo, nonstop, unassisted, round the world yacht cruise in a race called the Golden Globe Race from 1968 to 1969. He's finished within 2 days of PIXIE. PIXIE may have finished 2 days ahead of him. He finished in 310 days from England to England, and we finished in 304 days. So there. But we're very comparable boats. His boat is a full keel, just like Terwin, and we are very much a boat like that. So 50 years after he did that, they ran that race again as a retro race where the boats had to conform to 1970 standard production cruising sailboat parameters, and no electronic gadgets that was not available in 1968. And 18 boats started that race. We got a little slide here to show you what happened to those 18 boats. So the year before PIXIE, this was what we watched. We didn't watch the Vendée that year. We watched this one. This was really, really very exciting. And I chatted with Don McIntyre, the instigator and the man who did this, asking if PIXIE could go. And he said, no, I'm sorry, Bill. No, you don't quite qualify. Your boat does nice boat, Bill, but no thanks. Sorry, you can't, which was maybe a blessing, whatever. PIXIE was a little bit smaller than these boats. These boats were all under 37 feet. They're all less than 20,000 pounds. A couple of them were as light as PIXIE at 14,000 pounds. They all looked like PIXIE. They had their cutters or sloops. They all had full keels, stern hung rudders, servo pendulum wind vanes. Every single one of them. 18 started, 8 never made it to the Southern Ocean. Their skippers, bless their hearts, lost the fire in the belly or a boat problem, or their wind vane didn't work, or despite all the hoops they had to do to get into this race, 8 out of the 10 never made it to the Southern Ocean. 10 got to past Cape Town, and 5 got to the finish line. But the real amazing thing of this story of these boats were like their sister ships to PIXIE. You would not believe how close they are to PIXIE. They're PIXIE plus, right? 6 of them got rolled or pitch poled. 6 out of 10, like 60%, did a death roll, right? 4 of them were lost at sea, and the skippers were all rescued off their boats. One was just outside Cape Town. He rolled. As soon as he got to the Southern Ocean, he rolled. Bless his heart, he set up a jury rig and he sailed into Cape Town on his own steam. And another one, one won the race. The 4 others didn't. But 60% of these boats turned over or pitch poled, even worse. And 40% were lost. No skippers were lost, thank goodness. But it's nip and tuck. And so that's the numbers PIXIE was looking at as we went down there. And those of us who value seaworthiness, sea kindliness, beauty, and then with something you can afford, we'll watch with our eyes dilated to the modern racing boats with their vertical, unsupported, fragile foils. Once they were all vertical, now they're going horizontal, of course. So this is the ocean is not getting any cleaner. There's stuff in there. You will run into stuff, guarantee. We ran over a great big log in the Indian Ocean, and big whale pushed us all over on the Cape Town. You will run into stuff. It's just a matter of when. So you want to kind of think with that in mind. So anyway, and we're all racing, believe me, you know, I mean, but you've got to survive to win. And none of these boats hove to. One of them pitch poled when her Jordan Cedro bridle broke, and then she pitch poled, and we're lucky she survived. So that's the storm tactics story of what you're going to see now. So now I'm just going to take the next slide. Okay, this is a little emotional me having a time of my life. This is absolutely as good as it gets. I really enjoy this part. I've seen it many times. Okay, here goes. How to heave to.
Good afternoon. It's March 7th, 2020. I'm going to walk you through heaving to. We're going to start off with step one. I'm going to go out in the cockpit. I'll turn this thing around. I have to turn it off and turn it on because I'm too stupid to figure out how to do that with it still running. So you won't be able to hear me very well outside. I'll yell a little bit, but we're going to go out there, sit in the cockpit. And we're going to look at the windward side, and you'll see the trysail flying with the staysail. And I'll show you the numbers. There's 22 knots or so true wind. And we're on, this is forward of the beam a little bit. We're running north in the Indian Ocean, trying to get away from a gale slash low coming our way. It has been for 2 days, and we did about 5 degrees of latitude north, much to my chagrin, because we're going to turn, air off and run back down again. So this is, it's costing us 2 or 3 days to get out of the way of this doggone storm. But anyhow, so we're out of it. Instead of 44 knots, we're looking at 25 knots, but the seas are going to 7, 8 meters. So we're not going to mess around with it. We've been running up here for 3 days, and now we're going to get ready to heave to tonight because it goes higher. And we don't want to do this in the middle of the night. No, thank you. So, we're going to go out there. We're going to look at the sails and the numbers. And this is before we heave to. And then all we're going to do is we're going to push the helm over to leeward, lash it down, and bring the staysail forward and shrink it down a little bit, furl a little bit, and bring it to windward. And that'll blow the bow down and the trysail, and in cahoots with the rudder will try and push the bow, the bow up, and the staysail will push the bow down, and she'll sit there like a wee duck, 45 degrees off the wind, bow into the waves, and we'll slide backwards. And we will see the slick. The light is really good. Light is really good, and so here goes nothing. Okay, we're going to turn it on out there in the cockpit in a moment.
Well, I'll spare you that one and another one because time's precious, huh? So we got, this is the morning after, and it went great, and so you're going to see this is PIXIE hove to the next day, and give you a little hint of what that was like. And this is one of the most wonderful days of my life.
Well, one last little view, I'm gonna look at the numbers. These are still the nighttime screen. I never got around to changing a nighttime screen. So it's touching 30 knots there for what it's worth. And we're still drifting 1.8 knots, 1.9 knots. Anyway, so I'm going to, the seas are mixed up, now they're clocking around. Anyway, so I'm going to stand up and watch these waves come, and they collapse before the boat. I never say fear. I was afraid. I never say I'm afraid. But I didn't even want to watch these seas coming at us. It took a while, the guts to watch them come and just watch them crumble before the boat. It's quite remarkable. And I think this slick heads to windward, like about 30, 40 feet, not just the 4 or 5 feet we can see, but I think underwater it goes much further to windward. So I'm going to stand up. We'll just sort of hold the screen, watch some waves come at us here. Hang on. Okay, here comes one. Just beyond the line. line cutting through the water. Okay, now there's a whopper. Now that is a whopper. That's a masthead. That was a masthead. And look at, here it comes. It's just gonna right, and it just kind of slides underneath this. Yoo-hoo! Good thing. Good thing. Oh my God, that was big. That was a good one. You can't tell from here, but here comes a couple more. Oh yeah, and the chute is about a period of wavelength behind us. You can see it there now and then. Yeah. Oh, I caught it. Okay, here comes a trough coming up. Here's a trough right here. There it is. And it just collapses. See that? And then there's one coming over. It's going to hit the bow. And it just folds on itself. Thank God. Look at this whopper. Oh my God, that's up there. Oh, it just slides underneath the boat. Yes. Yes. Thank goodness. Woo. Yeah. It takes some guts just to watch these puppies come. Okay, a little one going by. There's a trough right in front of us. Bridle just rising up, and it just slides underneath. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Very nice. Okay, just thought I'd show that. I never really stood here and watched those waves come. Okay, here goes another trough of water. It's coming at us right now, and then it just kind of slides underneath. That didn't matter. And I re-reeve the party bridle so it goes through a different stanchion. It's a little bit better, a little bit cleaner line. Still scrubs a little bit, but how many times are we going to be doing this? I don't think so. Yeah. This is one of my 3 50 feet half-inch nylon triple braid transient dock lines. They're just so handy. Oh, look at this one. You're just going to slide underneath this. Yes. Okay, here comes another one. Yeah, and it just kind of this doesn't look like nothing because it is nothing. Thank God. Yeah. Okay.
Well, let me see where we at. What's the next one here? Oh yeah, we'll go back to that. Oh no,
That's okay, love.
yeah,
There
yeah.
we go.
So a couple of things there that I didn't mention before is that that featured prominently was that line going out to windward. That's the Sea Anchor Road. The distances are amazingly different. This road goes out there 300 feet. That's pretty much an American football field. Like it's way out there, and you can see it right there. That's how far those waves are apart. They were averaging, and you could see it like a great big jellyfish in the ocean. Now, whether you need a sea anchor or not is a debatable question. Probably I don't know if I need it or not, but I put everything out because I'm going to go for, I make errors of commission rather than omission. I went the best I had. So, but that sea anchor, Lynn warns that you don't want too big a sea anchor, and that one may have been too big a sea anchor. We had it for wind. And then one night after that video was made, it was a great big explosion, and you could feel something change. And I pulled it in, and it was a cat of nine tails. The whole parachute ruptured. There was about 16 lines, quarter-inch lines holding that parachute on the end of that line, and it just blew off. It absolutely blew off, and it was gone. And I substituted our backup sea anchor, a Gale rider, a 36-inch Gale rider, and it actually was vastly superior because it gave more give, and the boat slid back further and made a better slick. I think the parachute was so colossally effective that it almost stopped it stopped PIXIE's backward slide, and that stopped slick, so the slick would diminish. But the entire time was hove to, not one wave broke over the boat, not one. And otherwise, when you're running or whatever, waves are breaking on the boat, not uncommonly. The cockpit got filled from poop from behind 3 or 4 times, just filled right up with seawater. The wave broke kind of gently over the stern third of the boat, and many times downwind. The waves they're not all, the train is not exactly the same. It keeps oscillating, 5 or 10 or 15, 20 degrees, whatever. And every now and then a wave will catch you on the side and smack like a lunge hammer, and the boat will lunge sideways to leeward, whatever, 2 feet or something, and the sails will lose their flow, and the boat will eventually stop and then slowly get going. But not once, hove to, did I ever experience a threatening wave over. The other thing that happened with that bridle was one night that that 1/2-inch nylon, triple braid nylon transient dock line ruptured right there. Bam, it blew up and it blew in half. And the cat o' nine tails blew back onto the boat, and the $400 snap shackle on the line vanished, and the whole thing exploded. So I had two locking carabiners opposed, worked just as good or better, and at a fraction the price, obviously. And so yeah, the sea anchor is an added adjunct to the heaving to recipe. It's all in Lynn and Larry's book. But you know, and the other thing about the Jordan Sea Drag, everybody says that's really difficult to pull in. Plus, we have all that stuff on the stern. I had fun pulling in this sea anchor. Pulling in the sea anchor is fun. It's one of my very favorite jobs. I'm not a big fan of dragging sailbags around a boat. I find that a little bit like work. But sitting down in the bow, propped in and doubly belayed in the bow, working with the bits and the sea anchor, 300 feet of it out there, pulling it in at 2 to 3-4 feet at a time as the bow comes up, and it pulls the line and then it goes down and it goes slack, and you slide that in and figure eight on the bits, and then stuff it into the bag ready to go. It takes about 30 minutes, and you're sitting out there on the bow, and it's really very much fun because you're still hove to, so the waves never get you or anything. But it's not hard at all. It's pleasant. It's quite pleasant, and putting out isn't difficult either. It's quite a lot of fun, actually. And so yeah, if it's easy, you'll do it, and if it's not easy, maybe you won't do it. But anyway, so that's in the pro of heaving to plus and minus the sea anchor, and it was really great. So I ran out of time, up and down, running around trying to avoid these storms and being so careful. I ran out of time, and by the time I got to the fifth of the big cape, or the fourth of the big capes, Tasman, I was getting late. It was the early May, and which is kind of fall time, I think. Anyhow, in that measly 900 miles of the Tasman Sea, I had 4 or 5 gales, and they went one right after the other. And the darkest moment, did I ever think I was going to die? Oh yeah. Yeah, I thought many times this could be my last day. This could be my last day. And the darkest day where I thought I made so many mistakes today, this could be my last day. So that all happened underneath Tasmania. And once again, there's another big storm coming, 45 plus knots coming. But there was in the lee of Tasmania, there was soft seas, and I was closing in on Tasmania, which is only 43 south, under the big bite of Australia. And I thought, wow, clever Bill, I'll just tuck up underneath the lee of Tasmania and avoid this next big storm that's coming, and not have to heave to, and that would be good. That would be great. So the sea bed goes from about 2 miles deep to 200 meters deep in about a quarter mile. It goes straight up to nothing on the continental shelf, but not yet. No, a continental shelf of Tasmania. Going into this whole story, and okay, yeah, maybe we'll. Yeah. We're going to show this chart. This is a weather map. Here's a weather map while I'm talking. You can study that weather map for a minute. That's later on. But so Australia up in the left-hand corner, New Zealand in the center of the world, right there, just a little bit above bottom. And you can see this gale roaring through the Tasman Sea, piled up on Fiordland and squirting through the Bass Strait between Tasmania and Australia. And look at that beautiful squirt of storm coming through Cook Strait. Classic. Absolutely classic. That's a beautiful chart if there ever weather chart. Only trouble is I was right in the middle of it, right? You can see the little green arrow, that's where PIXIE was. And that's predict winds, say where I could go. Big deal. It's all bad. But anyway, while I was down, before this picture was coming towards Tasmania on the worst night of the entire year. It was probably the most closest I've come to the big one in my little lifetime. Anyway, so the first mistake was there's a big storm coming, so I'll hide and run up underneath the lee on the east side of Tasmania was the plan. So I had to come in close, about 20, 30 miles off the coast of Tasmania, which was kind of nice because I haven't seen land for 3 months, right, since Cape Town. And it was absolutely gorgeously beautiful. And the clocks are always screwy. I mean, it was like 3 a.m. I got up with a bit of daylight, and it was, howling along. We're going, waiting for daylight, waiting for landfall. Got landfall about 6 a.m. and then onto the shelf at about 7 or 8 o'clock. No problem. It was just fine. It was blowing 25 knots, and I'm avoiding this 45 knot storm. But I underestimated the 28 to 32 sustained wind the day that I'm coming in here. And so 32 turned into 42, turned into 50 as I'm closing in on Tasmania. But it was and then it was okay for the day, and it rounded the Cape at about 2 p.m. and the seas got bigger and bigger and bigger. And next thing you know, they were mast height. That's another thing I never believed in, was mast height waves. They're mast height. The dimensions are unbelievable. That I mentioned the sea anchor out there 300 feet, and it just looks like it's 30 feet, right? And you can still see it. It's just, that's between waves. And the waves are like 40 feet high, 30 feet high. It's just mast high. It's colossal, and there's nothing to go on, right? So I tried, well, how big are these waves? You know, at one point the sun was shining through the wave, and down in the gully of these waves, and they're close packed in, I think, because I was moving like crazy, being optimistic, because I must have had a favorable tide coming down underneath the southeast corner of Tasmania. But the seas got bigger and bigger and bigger, and the wind was going up to 35. It was darn near 40 knots, but the seas were like I've never seen before. They were so big. There was no wind at the bottom, and I saw 50 knots at the top. They're up and down, up and down. And the real problem was I had to avoid these little islets sticking out of the southern part of Tasmania. So I couldn't run dead downwind like I wanted to. I had to kind of keep coming up, bite a little bit more up to avoid these little big rocks, little islands, little big rocks, and put me at, you know, in danger. It felt dangerous. It really felt dangerous. And neither PIXIE nor Monty nor Frida could manage these winds, because the wind was so up and then down and up and down, depending what part of the drop we were in. And it was getting, and I said, Jesus, I remember the sun was getting down. I got to eat something. I haven't ate anything. I haven't peed. I haven't drank. I've been in the cockpit since like 4 in the morning, and now it's 4 in the afternoon, and I'm steering for survival in these great big waves. Like, well, I've got to get something to eat. I've just got to get something. Think ahead, Bill. You don't want to get like, you know, do it proactive rather than whatever. So I chose a good moment, I thought, and picked up that plexiglass and jumped down, put the plexiglass in, jumped all the way down and filled my pockets with a couple, 3-4 granola bars, and started coming up the companionway. Just got the plexiglass out and looked up, and there was a wall of water on my starboard. It was the port side of the boat on my right-hand side, staring aft. It was just a pure wall. I couldn't see the sky. It was just a pure wall of water. And then, and just watched it for half a second. And I remember thinking, oh, that's a mammalian reflex, a mammalian dive reflex. Here I was. I just held my breath, and the water starts flowing over me. Wow, I didn't even take a breath, but I knew to stop. It's, you know, that cold water reflex where you just hang on to your breath, right? And I remember thinking, it's over now. Oh my God, really. I thought, holy F, I've been lying, and my feet were off, and I'm hanging on the side, not the end of the, but on the side of the Dodger. The boat had gone over on her starboard side, and I was hanging off the port side of the companionway with my feet free flowing down below in the cockpit. It was water just flowed right through the cockpit, through the open hatch, down into the back into the chart, onto the quarter berth and the chart table and all my library and the whole, like, it flowed for, I don't know, 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004 and change, maybe, I don't know. And I opened my eyes when my head was out of the water again, and the cockpit's awash, and we're sort of on our side. I clambered on up and grabbed the tiller and think, whoa, that was bad. That was bad. I kind of looked down below, and you could just see water sloshing around like 1.5 feet deep in the bottom of the cockpit, and the chart table is an ice box and a lid on the ice box. The ice box lid was up and stuck, and there was just water, chaos, like mega chaos everywhere. And I think, oh, this is bad. This is bad. And I remember thinking, well, I should heave to. Then I realized that I can't heave to, because like the Tasmania is essentially a lee shore now, right? With these little islands there. So, oh God, now I got, and just as I'm figuring this out, this big rock was floating by me. It wasn't a rock. It was one of my lashed propane tanks. I'd lashed not so good, obviously, on the fore deck. It was floating, bobbing by I've never seen that. It's surrealistic to see your propane tank floating away behind you, right? Thinking, oh, that's bad. That's bad too. I think, well, I got something to eat. That's good. I got something to eat. I thought, well, you know what? This could be the day. Like, what? Like, whatever, right? Well, that's okay. That's okay. I'm never gonna lose. I never lose. And cold water is good. I'm a hell of a good swimmer in cold water. And there's no way I could get a life raft up out of there if it all broke loose. Right, forget it. Right, just it ain't gonna happen. And I'll never forget the waves were every bit as tall as the mast, and it was 0 wind at the bottom and 50 knots at the top, and 0 wind and 50 knots. Those are the last numbers I saw. That water just finished it. That was it. We were done with numbers. No more numbers. But when that was the beginning of the Tasman Sea. Then the gales kept coming one after another, and that's why in this coming up little video, in Christchurch, I got a little bit, I don't know where this falsetto voice comes from, but I had no idea this was going to happen. Poppy set this up with Vicky, you rascals, and they had the New Zealand news teams were several cameras with big floodlights and shit. It was just quite incredible when I finally got to Cape Town. Anyway, got through the Christchurch. Yeah. So anyway, so I got through the Tasman Sea. It took me I was hove to for 6 nights, and 90 miles took damn near, I think 2 weeks, to get around the corner of New Zealand and then straight into a headwind and no wind. So there was 320 measly miles from Stewart Island to Christchurch. And it took me 8 days. It was painful. But the seas got lower and lower. No more big seas. I could care less. The engine was kaputzi. I thought probably, nothing's working anyway. But it was, and there was Bueller albatrosses. I had hundreds of them around. You should look them up. They're absolutely glorious birds, right? But I was plucking my way along up the east side of, came within 10 miles of Dunedin, where I trained before, and the peninsula. It was all beautiful. And it was just, and one day I woke up, after a nap, and there's this fishing boat about 100 meters away on my side. And I used my radio remote VHF. Oh, sorry. Okay. He says, I thought he was going to give me heck too, like that French guy under the horn. And it was this beautiful New Zealand accent. Oh, it's just okay. I watch you. Oh yeah, no problem. My set is good. I'll be good. Don't you worry. I've been watching you. It's all good. No, I'm going to report. You stay where you're going. I'm just going to turn around here anyway. Don't you worry. It's all good. So he's been watching me sleeping for 2.5 hours with his fishing that's all dragged up behind us. We're 50 miles off the New Zealand coast in the middle of friggin' nowhere. And it was just, they're friendly from that get-go, right? It was just so good. Anyway, drifted away, headwinds, and struggled my way up towards to Banks Peninsula, I think it's called, and Littleton. Yeah. And then finally got within 10 miles, and it was dead calm and foggy, and hanging out in the fog like usual, and the fog burned off, and the engine started. The second last time it ever started was right there, and Vicky was on her way out with a Coast Guard boat, because they've been locked down with COVID, which was news to me, and they hadn't been in the boats. None of the boaters been in the marina for 2 months, right? Anyway, so I get down there, clear custom, finally, and the marina guy comes out, and Matt. And the marina manager comes out, and there's many Matts. Matt, the marina manager, comes out and meets me in his Zodiac and escorts me to the customs dock. And the customs dock takes 2.5 hours. They're very sweet, offering me tea and cookies, and they're chatting away. And I said, well, when's the last time you had a boat in here? He said, and one turns to the other one and says, was it 3.5 or 4? No, it was only 3.5 years since the last cruiser we went in here. They never they're learning the ropes as they go, right? Meanwhile, the sun is setting, and I'm in the customs dock, and I go all the way around across this other marina, oh my God, with an engine that probably won't start. And I said, do you mind if I stay the night in the customs dock, because I don't think this is going to happen. And I come out after 2 hours with the customs folks having this tea party that the sun is set, and there's the marina manager been waiting for me the whole doggone time. He said, no, don't worry, I'll tow you if need be, whatever, right? And I said, well, okay. Now all the fenders are on the starboard side. And I said, well, you show me, because oh yeah, no problem. I said, well, is it okay if all my stuff's on the starboard side? Should I move all the fenders and lines over to the port side so we come into a port side time? Oh, it's going to be a port side side, but don't worry about it. There's people there. We'll answer. Oh, really? Really? Oh, yeah, sure. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, don't worry. I said, oh, okay. So the engine miraculously started, and I'm pitch black. I got no lights. I got a headlamp. That's it. And a Bluewater Cruising toque. You'll see my Bluewater Cruising toque on the video. And he takes me through across this harbor, and inside this marina, it's like going right into the belly of Van Isle Marina out of nowhere, right? I don't know where the hell I'm going, pitch black. You couldn't see nothing, right? Except all these lights at the end there. And there's a whole bunch of people on the dock. Lo and behold, they're waiting for me. And there's 3 or 4 movie cameras and bright lights. It's drove into this movie set. And 8 o'clock at night has been pitch black for 2 hours. I had no idea, but within a moment you realize this is being filmed, right? So a little bit emotional. I wasn't emotional at all. I just faking it for the movie camera, just putting on a little poetic license here. So that's not really me. No, I was just having fun because it was obvious this is like a big movie thing. And then it turns out that it was on the 6 o'clock news the next night, and the front page of all the papers. I was like my 15 seconds in the sun. It was really quite funny. COVID played right into my hands. It's not because of me. It's not because of PIXIE, because COVID happened. I had no idea. So you're going to see some New Zealand sirens here, and they're gorgeous. Okay, here we come.
3 months. We were there as he arrived into Christchurch last night, discovering a world completely changed by COVID-19. Thomas Mead with the story.
For the first time in 3 months, Bill Norrie is on solid ground. It's been a long, long time in isolation. Female voices, I love female voices. Local sailors here to welcome him.
Yeah, you deserve it.
The retiree finally able to shore up and relax. I don't know if it is going to happen. But the world he's emerging into
Heaven's got some fresh scones for you.
is very different to the one he left.
You know, I love the New Zealand butter, but
When the brave adventurer left Canada in his yacht, PIXIE, 9 months ago, COVID-19 didn't exist. His voyage took him around the world, and at his last stop in South Africa 3 months ago, the outbreak had barely begun. His only connection, satellite emails from his wife.
zero. Just my wife saying, oh, the jargon is rounding out the curve. So now we're 6 feet away, and really, so it's still sort of strange to me.
Even his entry into Littleton Harbour in Christchurch was a little complicated.
I was the most isolated person on the planet. Ironic, they didn't want to let me in. It's too funny.
Officials deciding there was no need for a quarantine.
He's been at sea for 3 months by himself, socially distancing, washing his hands.
His lockdown spent right here and set to continue.
My sleeping bags and my blankies and my library.
Yes, he's heading back out in a few days to sail back home. Locals helping to buy up supplies.
I got a few funny looks at the supermarket actually, especially when I went and bought 3 packets of yeast at the same time. I thought I was going to be lynched.
Thankfully, the calmer tropics are in front of him, because if last night is anything to go by,
I can't imagine why anybody go on there a second time. Are you afraid?
the salty sea dog still has plenty of adventures ahead. Thomas Mead, One News.
Oh, and it's some adventure. Chris joins us for sport, some new faces.
There, that was it. Like it was only 6 weeks in the human domain, and it was 3 of the best. 6 weeks was really great. I mean, New Zealand is everything anybody ever told you about times 10. It's just so sweet, and everybody was so kind and so nice and so sailor orientated, and it's so beautiful and it's so safe. It's so Canadian, except it doesn't have a lot of
New
good
Zealand
stuff.
accent.
It's good, exactly. Yeah, it's great. It's totally great, right? So anyway, it took 3 weeks to get all bits and pieces organized and whatnot, and best we could. And lots to help to Vicky Moore and her whole team, the Te Ana Marina, and a lot of liveaboards there. And you'll see a picture of them in near the end here. And I was just like one of the gang. It was just straight into it. It's like, it was just so much fun. I feel sorry for tourists that walk around, come out of a bus and no one looks at you. These people are all over me like, fruit flies, man. I couldn't walk down Main Street or in a grocery store, or the liquor store. They're posing with me and stuff, right? It was just a real joke. It was a real joke, and it was so much fun. And I trained down there, in '77, and my friends, Heather and Nikki and Yvonne and our friends, they all looked after me. I went from Christmas dinner to yacht race to another party, another dinner, shopping with Vicky, and then we had lunches, and it was just so much fun. Everybody, and pulling in, and John's friend Peter, we got batteries. We got 2 sets of battery. Like, oh my God, it was just so much fun. And we went to leave, and the wire, the heater provided. The wire was frozen to the dock. We couldn't get the wire off the dock. It was frozen to the dock. We couldn't get it off to get away from there. So anyway, finally left, and arrived May 22nd, left June the 6th, and PIXIE sails north. So it's she's about I don't know, it's about 10,000 miles from down there, 43 south to 49 north, and from Eastern Hemisphere to we are 124th. And you know what? It was like let me just see, the next slide may show it a bit better. Yeah, there it is. You can see on the right hand side the way down, following the trade winds, downwind, tropical downwind, Hassy twin, head sail, piece of cake, wine in the cockpit, dinners, beautiful. And on the way up, it's slightly to windward the whole way. You can see from New Zealand, I kind of tried to, I needed to get more eastings, but I really wanted to get out of the cold. I was a bit of a pansy. I wanted to get out of the cold. I wanted to keep the seas low. But the entire time I went, they got warmer and warmer and warmer till the end. And the seas went down and down and down until the end, right? So it was like really great, but it was slightly uphill the whole way. And but it just, it's a moment in my mind. I don't remember much at all. I remember, bashing my way to windward and with it behind me to 150 west. And then you see a sharp turn left and headed north, ziggle-zaggle my way through the Society Islands because it couldn't stop thanks to our friend COVID, and which was kind of fun. And went right by Tahiti and Moorea and Tuba, and it was really, and it was really fun actually, all the way up and through the ITCZ, and then bore off the left. Once we get there, then you can see it takes a jog to the left, and now we're in the northeast trades, and it was a downhill run a little bit northeast trades till I take that corner at the right and then wiggle my way through the variables to get home to Victoria and the Strait of Juan de Fuca. But really, that whole 9,000 miles like that went through, no big deal. And then it got a little more exciting right at the very end. I disappointed many very good friends who had come all the way from Kelowna, the Bud clan and extended, and lots of friends from Calgary, and they came out in their boats and stuff, waiting around for Bill to show up. And then just outside, just off the Swiftsure bank, the wind stopped. It had a really good breeze right up to the Swiftsure. It was rocketed in there. Then the wind stopped, and I drifted around in the tide with no electronics, no AIS, no radio, no lights, no. What else you got? Chart plotter, no wind instruments, they're long gone, everything gone, totally gone. And drifted around, just the battery run YB tracker, that and it showed my little progress as I drifted around. It's still out there, on the off the, so I ghost my way north in daylight, pulley holly all the way, like about 10 miles in about 10 hours, and then it would just stop, and I'd go down and give up and go to lay down my bunk, and it would drift back and forth and back and forth 3 or 4 days in that, and it finally filled in about 3 in the afternoon. I remember one day after 3 or 4 days of this, and it slowly, gradually built. It started drizzling and raining and foggy, and sailed with a handheld compass, intermittent hiker's GPS from that year 2000, and paper charts all the way up the Strait of Juan de Fuca, and crossed that path at San Juan Harbor within the hour of the year before. It was just kind of magic, actually, kind of really cute. And then the wind just built, and one of those westerlies filled in. It was a beautiful day, filled in, it got better and better, and I realized I'm going to get home tonight without saying I'm going to get home. So I washed my hair for the first time in a month, right? Because I'm going to meet Kathy again, like, whatever, I got to tidy up a bit here, right? And the boat was sailing herself back to the Hassy twins, rocketing down the Strait of Juan de Fuca, heading for the race rocks. You could see it coming, and then 2 sailboats popped up on the horizon, just out of Souk, I guess. And they came, they're racing out of there. I thought, it was a good afternoon. It was about 4 in the afternoon. It was a nice day for a sail. And these guys came out, and they were sailing around. I was kind of watching them, and PIXIE sailing herself, and I'm having a shower down below, right? And I'm running around, and it was just absolutely glorious. I figure, well, if not today, then tomorrow for sure. And turns out it's our Royal Yacht Club member, John Green, another anesthesiologist. They're good people, anesthesiologists. They're sleepy, but they're good, right? And he came on in this super fast boat. He's probably got the fastest boat in the Royal Vic Yacht Club, and PIXIE might be near the other side of that equation. But really nice guy. He came out, and he'd been waiting in Souk for 3 days for Bill would finally show up. And another guy, Bert Vermeer, our super boatswain rocket star, he was out there in his 30-foot Island 30, and the two of them independently decided to short circuit PIXIE on our way in, hanging out in Souk, and they both did. They got to know each other on the dock. They came out, and we had a little flotilla, 3 of us coming in. It was absolutely glorious, full sun, 20 knots right behind. We're gonna make it in for the day. It was so great. And I told him, I yelled across, I got no engine or anything. So, oh, that's what we'll tow you, Bill. That's the last bit. And I said, oh, that's great. We're gonna tow me. This is so good. So I was really afraid it was gonna stop any moment, and I embarrassed myself by being towed in the last 10 miles or whatever, right? So we were rocketing around. Race Rocks is like 5 or 6 miles away from Royal Vic Yacht Club. And we just missed, we came rocketing in with this flood tide, and then it just turned and it was ebbing right when the sun went down as we crossed the race. We went across. So I remember yelling across to John, I think we should go on the outside. I think it's going to be, yeah, outside. And he, don't worry, we'll tow you in. Perfect. So the 3 of us are now like neck and neck within 100 meters of each other. And we turned the corner, and just as after the tide changed, and it was a tide against the 20-25 knots on one side and 4 knots of current coming out the other side. It was a ride 'em cowboy, man. Absolutely ride 'em cowboy. Hanging onto the turn. Whoa! With those 2 great big poles up there, and it was absolutely spectacular sailing. And then the fog hit, wham! Right into a fog bank. You couldn't see a doggone thing. And the last shot of my radio, I said to John, I can't see nothing, and I'm not happy. I'm going to bail and head southeast into some deep water. Okay, Roger, Bill. And then we lost each other. It was pea soup fog, 20-25 knots of breeze, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, and an adverse current. And so in that fog, pitch black, and romping short gusty seas on the 93rd day out of Christchurch, went out on the foredeck. So proud of myself, and put both those, first I put both sails to bed, and then went on the foredeck and put both poles to bed, and then put up the staysail and charged off to the southeast. Beautiful, absolutely wonderful. Freezing to death. I've been awake for like 36 hours now, like nonstop, virtually partying and sailing in the cockpit, just having a wonderful time. But now realize I'm heading right back out into the traffic lane, right? Like great place to be, like with no lights, no radar, no nothing, right? So John and Bert, this is not good. They headed to inner Victoria Harbor rather than the club, because they, obviously they couldn't see, but they had chart plotters. They knew where they were going, and it cleared as they got closer to the inner harbor. And John called the Canadian Coast Guard just to give them a heads up that their friend is out there, right? And so John says, yeah, well, he's got nothing, and he's heading out into the sea lane. And the Coast Guard said, well, that's nice, that's a good bit, and that explains what that blip is out in the middle of the traffic. We got 2 inboard and 3 outboard freighters coming through in the next 2-3 hours. So thank you very much. We're gonna go get him, right? And John, yeah, that's not, I don't know what happened, but yeah, okay, right, fine. So John and Bert went to the inner harbor, and I went to bed out there. What could I do? Like nothing I could do anyway. But I sailed for about an hour and a half to about midnight or so. I figured this would be guesstimating, dead reckoning I would be, so I wouldn't, if the tide changed or the wind changed or whatever, I wouldn't end up on Discovery Island or Race Rocks, whatever. So I sailed as far as I could. I thought I was absolute middle of the Strait of Juan de Fuca, between the traffic separation zone, right out in the middle, best I could reckon, right? And then I thought, well, I'm going to heave too, but I don't want to put the trysail up. I'm too wrecked. I'm just too wrecked. So I thought, well, I'll just use a little bit of staysail. I just put a little bit of staysail, lashed the helm to leeward, and she boop, sat there perfect, absolutely perfect. Just maybe I don't need the trysail. Like, you're still learning all the time, right? She sat there like that. We duck again, just as sweet as toast. Thick fog and howling wind. Went down, but put my head on the pillow, figured, oh, that's it, I'm gonna have it. I set the alarm for like an hour, and within my head hits the pillow to be woken up to this incredible horn going off, like I've never heard a horn howling like that. And I braced for impact. I figured my time was up. The ferry, they come to get me, right? The Grim Reaper was coming down, and I opened my eyes when I didn't feel any impact, and the lights, the portals were flooded with this, floodlights were pouring in. I crawled up the companionway and charge up the companionway, and I'll never forget. And as soon as my head popped up, the headlight, the spotlights were on me, rather like New Zealand on the dock. And I'll never forget. He says, "Are you all right, sir?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I'm really good. Thanks for not running me over." He said, "Yeah, well, we're putting a line on. We're towing you in." Okay, radio. They put a man on board, and they got 7 knots. They told PIXIE the last 3 miles into the inner harbor on the quarantine dock. Who knew, right? And so anyhow, they took all night to get, they wanted to see me. They didn't want to do it on the phone, and I had nowhere to go and no engine and nothing anyway. And so at 7 o'clock in the morning, I had my usual constitutional granola, and the little sailboat's coming out of the inner harbor. It's glass, it's postcard inner Victoria Harbor quality, clean, bright blue sky, not a breath of wind, not a ripple in the water. And this little beautiful sailboat is motoring out of the inner harbor. Lo and behold, it's John. It's Bert, and then right behind is another little sailboat, a little trimaran, and it's John. So the two of them, they tied up onto the customs dock, and we had the first of many parties. It was really really great. They came to tow me home. So then and then Kathy came down, and another little yak, and next thing you know, we got back to the Royal Vic Yacht Club. Bert towed us, and the last 3 miles, and we tied up right where we left. And here's a wee picture of Poppy and I on.
No, you've got the video.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Before, yeah, sorry. One more video, a little 2-minute video. John took this video when he intercepted me out of Souk. This is John out of Souk, and lo and behold, here we are. Technical difficulty here. Oh, okay. These were the sirens in New Zealand. I forgot to mention. Yeah. Yeah. Just leaving the morning of this. Not only are these beautiful women kind and generous and fun, but they're sailors. Like, hello, we had, yeah, that was on the dock just before we left. Just a little bye-bye.
Yeah.
Aren't they sweet? So you gotta love New Zealand, man, and New Zealand women, sailing women, everybody, And this is the last time PIXIE's engine ever started. I forgot all this. Last time PIXIE's engine ever ran, as it started heading out of Littleton Harbor into the South Pacific. And okay, here we are, back to where we were. So this is straight on to Fuca. We're looking south here. That's the Olympic Peninsula, and the video is taken by John Green, and come out to meet PIXIE. Bless his heart.
This is PIXIE, about 1 mile from Race Rocks, just to the starboard side of Sauterelle. I'll try and zoom in. There's the skipper. There's the skipper of PIXIE. There you go. Say hello. Say hello, Bill. Hello. That's pretty good. Everybody in New Zealand is going to see this. Okay, I'm going to go back to navigating now. Out. Okay.
Then at noon the next day, we finally made her back to B02 Royal Vic Yacht Club. Poppy came with me on that tow from the inner harbor, thanks to John and Bert. And
this picture was taken by Jennifer.
And this picture was taken by Jennifer Hanley, like the superstar Commodore of the planet. She's everywhere. She's everywhere, right? Didn't she got quality picture? So this is about as good as it'll ever be for your friend Billy here. It's downhill for all the way from here, but it was a really good run while we had it. It was really great. And I want to thank you all for putting up with my yak. Anyway, so I'd love to entertain any questions if anybody's still awake.
Yeah.
Nice t-shirt.
That was great, Bill.
Wonderful.
So we have a few questions that we've picked up off the chat that Pam can read out to you, and you can see what you can answer them.
So the first questions, Bill, were from Kate Swangard, and they were right at the very beginning of the talk. She was wondering, did your B&G instruments come with the boat, or did you choose them for the boat? Because they had experienced difficulty with theirs in the early 2000s with integrating B&G with other instruments, and wondered if you had that problem as well.
No, we put all those on there. She had nothing, and these are Trident, and the chart plotter followed it a couple years later, and they've been seamless. They're you know, and when I raced back in the 90s, they were out of sight for price, B&G. There's no possible way. But no, these are all, they're all geared for themselves. And aside from the corrosion on the bus down below, and then the wind is at the masthead, it got blown off. They've been good. Yeah, they're all by ours, and yeah.
Okay, and the next question, just a quick one, was she wondered whether you had built up the gunnels on PIXIE or whether they came that way standard.
No, she's a wooden boat wannabe. She's all glass, and those are 8-inch bulwarks on wooden posts. That's standard BCC 28 makeup and nature. No, that's pretty much stock that way. It's stock. There's 128 of these out there.
Okay, I can't remember who asked this question, but they wanted to know how many reef points you had in your mainsail.
Oh, thank you. It's one of my favorite topics. This is really important. The mainsail is it's fully battened, and there's just 2 reef points, but they're both 30%. So and they're single line reefing. So I do all the mainsail reefing from the cockpit at all times. And at 30%, that's a deep reef. That's what most racing sailboats have, 10 or 12% on their first reef, right? So we got 30%, which is really a double reef, at least on most sailboats. So this, and PIXIE's second reef at therefore 60% taken in is only 40% of the sail. The trysail is only 26%. So there's not much difference between the double reef main. These, and I stand behind that. I think this is a Hassey idea. With single line reefing, there's complaint is there's so much friction, but the sail has 2 sides. And so having one side for the first reef and the other side for the second reef cuts down on the possibility of the lines getting messed up and tangled. So there's really not a lot of room at the gooseneck and at the partners with all these pulleys, the lines coming through. So 2 reefs is like all I think you would ever want. And the trouble with the main is it comes with the boom. So we put the boom to bed as soon as we can and run to the trysail, you know, if we want a little more. So the 30% each, and which is extremely deep. And I think that if you're going to reef, you may as well reef or make it happen, right? I don't want to go through all that and have 12%. Thank you very much. No, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Devin was curious about the differences that you had found between the 2 wind vanes, the one on Terwin and the one on PIXIE. And the additional question for that was, you mentioned that you'd had a fair bit of chafe with the monitor, and he was wondering how you dealt with that.
Oh, thank you so much. You know, on the first round with Terwin, it was flawless, absolutely flawless. And there was, and the lines never chafed, and they finally got tired. We were off the skeleton coast of South Africa. We got all the way to Africa before they fell apart and had to be replaced just once. And that was it. They never had a problem. And so we're big wind vane monitor fans. And then because of that success, I was uneasy, as I said, with just the trim tab, Larry Pardee and Mike Anderson, the freehand steering vane. And I didn't give a chance. So I put the monitor on and as a backup, belt and suspenders. And lo and behold, the monitor failed regularly, and no matter what I could do, I developed chafe in it was the port where the line exits the port vertical line stanchion, and it would chafe within a week, 10 days at the most. So I crawled back there on that boomkin and reached down and messenger the old with the new at least 10 or 12 times. It was just a real pain in the butt. And but yet the Frida was a colossal, and the stronger it blew, the better it was. Monitor, when the wind puffs up 5 or 10 degrees, she always heads up no matter what. If the wind goes up five knots, she'll head up, and then your parent wind will climb it, and you've got to readjust everything. Frida holds it course no matter how strong the wind blows. So the only thing where Monitor has it over Frida is in sloppy seas with less than 6 knots of true wind speed. Frida was just not sensitive enough. She's like me, not very sensitive compared to the Monitor wind vane.
What is Frida like? What was that other wind vane?
Go to YouTube, and it's called freehand steering. by Anderson Boat Works. He's got a professional 7-minute video with great music, a historical view. You see Larry Pardee and Mike, and how this has evolved. Larry and Mike, I haven't talked to Mike specifically of how he did it, but he and Larry were in cahoots, and I think it was kind of Larry's Seraphin initial in engineering, and Mike made it commercial, and it's a piece of art. It's really gorgeous. And so for the first thing we did, we got home, we took the monitor wind vane off and sold it. It's gone. It's never to happen again. It looks like an oil derrick. It's terrible, right? But the Frida looks really good, and she is like, you'd never know. I slapped a MEC 4 mil rope as the control line, and it's still there. Never needed adjustment at all. It's so simple, you won't believe it. It's like heaving to. It's so effective, you just can't believe it. Every time I heave to, I think, oh, you didn't need to heave to. As soon as I heave to, I think, ah, shit, you chicken shit. You don't need to do it. It's no big deal. As soon as you take it out of heave to, you realize why you hove to, right? It's just so wild, right? And Frida is short for freehand. Frida is so effective. You just clip it in that thing and she goes. That's all there is to it. But coastal sailing here, in our lack of wind in the summer and minimal opportunity in winter, with an island always looming up in front, I never gave it a chance. And shame on me. I hated to tell Mike, but I put that monitor on there. There's only 4 or 5 units, nothing to it. And then I didn't need it. And you know what? It broke. And I kept hoisting it up out of the way. Do I run with that water paddle in the water, or do I bring the water paddle up? So I ended up bringing the water paddle up, and I brought the water paddle up and lashed it too hard to port, and gears jumped out, and that's all she wrote. So it didn't work. It was 50-50 for the first, all the way to Cape, to the Southern Ocean, whatever. But if you look on the thing, everyone, there's freehand on chat. There's the link to the. I can't say enough of it. It's really beautiful. It's so simple. When you come see, everybody's invited to come on down and see PIXIE, and we'll run through this stuff about us during, right. We never get enough of talking about our own boats. You know how it is, right? Please forgive me, those first personal pronouns, but PIXIE's there for your surveillance, and it's really but the big thing is a wind vane. If you're not using a wind vane, you're not, like the smarter and stronger the electrical wind gains are, the dumber and lazier the sailor gets. And guess what happened to electronics? Yeah. No, you make a relationship with your wind vane, and we love our wind vane. It's the third crew member for us, and it was Frida was my second crew member. We love our wind vane. Frida is a doll, and she's going to get a new sail. I had one little item. That's another story. Thank you.
Okay, so Heather wanted to know why it was that you had lost all your electronics on the way back from New Zealand. Absolutely everything.
They just kept rotting. I never did solve the problem. There was damp moisture down there, and in New Zealand was cold and damp, and that locker was closed, and we changed the batteries, but I didn't go after the connections. And underneath the mast, it was just
shame on you.
Yeah. I had a blind spot there, right? And funny thing, it was just, and I didn't. I was close to figuring out, but I didn't figure it out. I figured I stand behind Lynn and Larry with the Unstoppable Sailboat by having stuff that doesn't break, and if it does break, it's broken. Done. Keep going. We won't worry about that, right? And so thank goodness for always have a battery backup without a connection. That I learned, right?
So I can't remember who it would ask, but they wondered whether you had used the Gale rider at all.
I'd only used it once the parachute disappeared. Once the parachute blew off the end of the sea anchor, rode up there 300 feet, it blew off. It was so much pressure, it ripped right off. Then I used the Gale rider 30, and it was superior because it was smoother. And the other I didn't mention, but all that heaving to, the port side primary winch was the anchor for the sea anchor bridle. The primary winch was the anchor for the bridle, and it torqued that primary winch. The primary winch was toast by the time I got to New Zealand. I had it fixed, and then it needed fixing again because it wasn't quite fixed maybe by the time I got home to Blackline. Yeah, huge forces, huge.
One person wanted to know what life raft you used.
Viking. It was a Viking foreman in a valet was lived down below with me.
Okay. And an appropriate question from our old Commodore here or Vice Commodore in Calgary, Magnus. He wants to know, what's next, Bill?
Oh, I think I kind of like we're getting PIXIE back to Nick and we're kind of gonna no plan is the current plan. No plan is the current plan. I'm just sort of glad she's not steel or aluminum, or we'd be heading for the Northwest Passage. But I think it would be cruel to PIXIE to go to the Northwest Passage being glass, and I'm so cautious and careful kind of guy. But if anybody got if we had a steel proper aluminum that would be it. That's the last thing to do. Forget the Northeast Passage. The Northwest Passage would be really. It's getting cooler and cooler as it gets warmer and warmer, unfortunately. But there it is. But it ain't going to happen with PIXIE, and we're both kind of going to swallow the anchor closely here.
We've just had a question. Thanks, Bill. We've just had a question pop out about the state of the varnish on PIXIE, and I'm guessing by the state of your stainless steel railings that it's probably about the same as the varnish looks like at the moment.
Oh yeah, but the varnish needs a little work. It needs a little work. Yeah, it needs a little work.
And the best varnish comes from New Zealand.
Yeah, we're gonna. I'm saving up for some little warmer climes. We got all that. We've been working. The electrics are all good again. We're all redone. They're all brand new. Nothing like 10 units will do. Right, all good electronics. The varnish needs the wood needs a little work. But actually, if you look close, there is no stainless on PIXIE. It's all bronze. And
is it okay?
So it looks like that is verdiglass. Verdigris. Yeah, it's verdigris. It's quite cute. It's actually quite pretty. It's so kind of green.
Covered with patina.
It's patina. Except where I use it, Brenda, this excellent idea from the gate of the beam gate to the aft quarter, it comes around the cockpit, right, in a bit of a curve. And if you use the lifeline, it would come straight over the winch handle. So Brenda had the idea, well, why don't we just use a quarter or a half-inch pipe and we'll bend it around so that it's proud. It follows the bulwarks rather than a straight line. And that is mated to a handle on the Dodger, which I highly recommend. Yeah. And that's, where you climb back. And there's no patina on there because I've been gripping it for life's end so many times, right? I mean, you can see everywhere I touch it, right? So, and all the stanchions are bronze, and the gamut iron and the krantz iron and the rolling, the bow roller, it's all bronze. So we let it rust. There's no such thing as stainless steel, by the way. It all rusts.
It does.
It does, yes. Bill Borley is wondering where PIXIE is now.
She's in B02 at the Royal Vic Yacht Club.
There you go.
They were so.
It was Doug Shadler that asked, when were you on Logan?
I was on Logan. I was on the summit of June the 20th, 1980.
Ah, so you were there
the year before us.
The year before us.
I led the expedition the following year.
Well, it's great. It's a good place. St. Elias Mountains are wonderful.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's now 10 o'clock here, 9 o'clock your time.
Wow. He does go on. That was fun.
If there's any other questions?
Come on, you pansies. Come on. Bring it on. Let's have one.
Bill, one question is, where did you grow up?
Lethbridge.
Where did you grow up to learn to be a sailor?
Lethbridge, and thank God the Rocky Mountains were right in view, right? So I spared you that little thing. We ran wild, us and the dogs, the kids, the boys, and they didn't know where we were. It was home for supper and back before dark, but we could see the Rocky Mountains in our boredom on the coast. And my neighbor fishing, best buddy, his daddy took me fishing to the Rocky Mountains, and I hit those trails over the Rocky Mountains, and from one trail to the one lake to another lake. Then we went over the top of a pass. We discovered 1 in 50,000 maps and never looked back. From the pass, from one lake to the next lake, over that little pass, no trail, we could see the summit. So we went to the summit. That was more fun than fishing. Then we went to the other summit, and then we went home, and we never stopped.
When did you start sailing?
Started sailing when I was 25. The day St. Helena blew up was the first day I was ever on the water here on a rented C&C 35 from Pender Island heading to Roche Harbor. The day that Sunday morning when St. Helena blew up with my
Where,
father-in-law.
where did you learn how to sail?
Oh, and I did my pediatric anesthesia fellowship in Washington, D.C. And every weekend went to Annapolis. It was only 30 miles away. And another resident and I, we taught ourselves on Chesapeake Bay. And then raced, then we bought, that same father-in-law and I, we bought a boat not knowing nothing, and moved out here with reverse culture shock in 85 to Duncan, and we raced a 38-foot CNC with PHRF. We got a few good guys who knew how to sail as crew, and we milked them for everything we could get out of them, and we just competed. And next thing you know, we did we Gift Shores and then Southern Cross, or yeah, it was good. I learned to race. Then I met guys in the Royal Vic Yacht Club who took me out, and I went on Meg and Carmana and raced with those guys and learned how to sail that way, and realized that boat we had was not what the boat I wanted. I wanted a boat that was, a cruising boat, kind of like Bear North, like a proper yacht, right? And that's how it happened. So if we say medicine took our youth, but taught us how to read, we know how to learn. We know how we need to learn. And you see one do one, you read all about it and you ease into it. And if you get into trouble, you back off, and then you self-taught. I got my Canadian boat card. That's it.
Okay, so Heather Marshall is wondering what your favorite Ichiban recipe is. I gather you ate mostly Ichiban going all the way around.
Oh yeah, Ichiban is great. Like tuna is really, like tuna is still standard, right? But you know what? Stewed tomatoes is good with Ichiban with tuna, and stewed Ichiban with stewed tomatoes is really, really good. That's my favorite. And New Zealand's got all kinds of Ichiban, mate. There's a world Ichiban, right? There's cold Ichiban. You make it and then you let it cool down. It's really good. They got all kinds of different sauce and stuff. It's really yeah, it's great. No, Ichiban. I love Ichiban, of course. It's mainly still tuna.
What did you
I'm with you on that one, John.
Over the equator?
What was that?
What did you give to Neptune when you crossed the equator?
Oh, rum. That's all I got. Usually by that stage is rum. Just a little bit of rum. Yeah, it was all good. I've been lucky. We went back and forth, so it's 6 times for us across the equator, and they're all different. And it's been fun. It's been I've enjoyed it. It's pulley holly and a little bit like work. You know better than anybody, but it's always satisfying to get through it, and it's variable, right? It's all good.
So Soren Almason says, do you have a book on plan?
No, I don't have
Yes,
a
you
book
do.
on plan.
Yes, he does. I am really working on Bill to write a book, because he is a good writer. I've taught him how to write, and he can really write well.
I love you too. I love you too.
He's got to write the book.
No.
Yes.
No,
Soren.
I like I said at the very beginning, the PIXIE's not a world anything. She was on September the 2nd. She was the last one that ever did this trip, and she followed in the wake of Gene Socrates. Do you know that Gene and I were on the dock getting our boats ready the year before Gene left? Like we were just down like 60 feet from each other. Good to see you there, Gene. Thank you so much. We look at we look at Narita every time we go past there all the time. We're all related.
Yeah. Now,
all right.
About your
your clothes were looking a little loose in that last photo. How much weight did you lose?
I never got on a scale, but I think 40 pounds at least. I really, and I put about 30 back on already, right?
You were looking a little large when you were in the Polynesia there on your way down.
Oh yeah. No, I just honestly, it's I went a whole year without eating for pleasure. Like I eat for pleasure virtually all the time now, right? I never ate for pleasure. I remember feeling guilty in the middle of the night with a big sail change and it's cold and shitty and everything, right? Do you think I could have a can of stewed tomatoes and maybe some sardines, or maybe a sea biscuit? No, with butter. No, you never have 2. You have to have 3 or 4. No, that's too much. Just a can of sardines. That's it. Now it's open season, of course, right? But no, I lost a lot of weight. You know what? Felt good, but not that good. Not eating sardines again for quite a while.
That was a great presentation. I think we all thoroughly enjoyed it. And I followed you all the way around as you went the first time and the second time. And eventually, when Pam and I can finally get back to our boat, maybe we'll get around ourselves.
That'd be
I
great.
hope we come.
And we will follow you.
And we're pitching for you.
Yeah.
COVID will go. This will pass.
Yeah. Yeah.
John, did you have anything else?
No, I just want to thank you, Bill and Kathy. Kathy, I know that you helped him navigate those storms, so kudos to you. And thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. Hopefully, we all get to sail this summer. Cheers.
Yeah.
Well, it was fun.
All right.
Cheers. Thanks so much.
Thanks all.
Everybody.
Take care, Bill.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
everybody. You're too kind. Thank you, John. Here, see you on the water. See you. Oh, Eric, there you are. Good on you, Kathy.